Pioneers of Esports podcast. Get ready.
All right, so we are joined today by Mr. Dan Santos. He was a finalist in the 2017 Nintendo World Championships, and his story is interesting in that he was an invitee, but not based on just celebrity. He was a professional Splatoon player. So he was invitee based on skill, and he did quite well for himself, finishing 5th out of 18 players.
Fantastic.
So thanks for joining us, Dan. And I love the shirt, love the hat. They gave you the hat. And let's kind of talk about. Dorian had a great question before. But this is our second attempt at this, so you can ask you your question.
Technical difficulties have made
Technical
us go
difficulties. We're getting there. We're getting there.
This is attempt number 2. But yeah, so the question that I had asked before, which we're going to ask right away again, is: was Splatoon your first professional game?
Okay. Well, I was getting into this really interesting story. I'll give you the long answer in a second, but the short answer is no. It's actually not my first professional game. I played a wide variety of professional games prior to Splatoon, and this is kind of funny because it ties in directly with why exactly I was chosen to be at the Nintendo World Championships. So I'll get to that in a second, but. The first competitive game that I actually played was actually the first 2 Mortal Kombat games, and this was when I was like 9 years old. And now a lot of people are probably gonna like, yeah, I know, you're probably thinking like, what, 9-year-old playing Mortal Kombat? What the heck, you know? And back then during the 90s, you know, like Mortal Kombat was like such a controversial game, right? Because like it's so much gore and violence, and it was kind of like a new thing at the time. And now, you know, we have like games like Call of Duty and like all these other like really super gory graphic games, and you know, they don't really phase us anymore, but back then it was kind of a big deal. So here's the thing. I already had like an SNES and a Game Boy and an NES, and like I think my family was pretty okay with me playing like a bunch of games, but I got introduced into Mortal Kombat in a very different way. See, like my family, even though I'm here from Toronto, Canada, my family is actually from South America. And whenever I went to go visit my family over there, we would, in Chile in particular, where my family's from, there were, back then in like the early 90s, there was like arcades all over the place. And that was one of my favorite places to actually hang out because like, you know, just other than playing console games at home, it was just a chance to go out and kind of like try all these new games that like I wasn't really familiar with. So, you know, I get to play stuff like Tetris, you know, with other people. And I think there was like the old Ninja Turtles arcade game that they had, or the arcade cabinet. And I got to also play Mortal Kombat, and that's like, I was really introduced to that. And there was also Street Fighter as well. But like, I think I was more into Mortal Kombat at the time too, because it was like really like super, it was really, really chaotic. And there was like a lot of people playing that too. And by a lot of people playing it, I mean, usually the culture for South America is like usually whenever high schoolers would finish school, the cool thing to do back then was like go immediately to the arcade and just go hang out, and everybody would just like take turns playing each other and just you know, trying to see who's like the best player at Mortal Kombat, right? It was kind of like a pastime, right? It was like competition after school, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got to like, that was kind of my first encounter into like competitive gaming, I guess, if you will, because
so you're 9 and you're doing this against high school kids.
Yeah, and my parents would just kind of like come take a look at me, and they'd be like, "What are you doing? Like, what is this game? Why are you playing? And you're getting your butt obviously handed to you because you don't know how to play this game, right?" But then as soon as I played, I was just like, "Oh man, I totally want to keep playing and getting better at this." And then by the next time I actually come in, I can actually stand a chance against these like high schoolers that obviously know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was fun times, and I think from that point onwards, I kept on like I bought the SNES version and of Mortal Kombat 2, and I just started like practicing like crazy. And I think I never got to actually enter an actual tournament with it, but like I was at that point where it was like I would face a lot of my friends back in like in elementary school who were also had the game, but I would just completely like destroy them.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, okay, cool. I feel very confident about this. And even going back to it at the Midwest Gaming Classic, I think there was like an MK2 cabinet there, and I was just like hovering around there for like an hour, and I was just playing a bunch of people in the arcade cabinet. It was like it was a really nice experience.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Were you a character specialist, or did you just play the cast?
I was to answer your question, I was a Shang Tsung main, so I was a
Okay,
character
well.
specialist.
Yeah.
You play the cast with the character. Okay, that's always
Yeah.
good. Fantastic.
Mhm.
Yeah, I actually really did love Mortal Kombat as well. I was in high school by the time. I would have been one of those high school kids by that time. So that and more, and Street Fighter and everything else was kind of really what made me drive that competitive spirit and really fall in love with competitive gaming in general. So I can definitely relate to that. And there's still a pretty good scene down in South America. Like there's a lot of really strong players that will come up occasionally from like Evo. It's interesting because they're still playing some of the games that were popular back when we were kids. Like Champion Edition is still huge, even in Chile, right? So like that's a really big game down there still. So it's kind of interesting to see the stopped in time mentality of some of the arcades that were down there. Have you been down recently?
No, actually, the last time I went was when I was like 17, so that's easily over a decade at this point. But and it makes me sad because it's like I know when my family does go, because I've been like too busy with work and whatnot. But whenever my dad does go, and I ask him, it's like, oh, are those arcades still there? Sadly, not all of them are there, but there's still some.
Mhm.
And surprisingly, the culture hasn't really died. And it kind of makes sense because it's just as you said, there was like so many actual players that go to Evo that are from Chile.
Mhm.
Like I remember there was one Evo where like a Chilean competitor actually won the UMVC3 bracket. And of course, we had like a lot of notable people from Chile that actually are really, really good at their games. Like Zero is actually from Chile, and
Mhm.
he's like one
Yep.
one of the most renowned Smash Brothers players that I can actually think of off the top of my head.
Yep.
What's
But yeah,
the
like
population
culture
of Chile?
versus that.
Sorry.
I don't
Sorry to interrupt.
no. I actually don't know, to be honest.
All right,
It's
I'll wiki it. You guys can.
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll
Let's
continue
look this
talking
up.
while he looks that up.
Why do I
Real
need to ask
time.
stupid questions?
Right. Just ask
Mhm.
Google, or
Yeah.
Bing, whoever you want to ask. Yeah. So let me ask you this then. So you went into the Mortal Kombat scene, really got into that, but never took it competitively. What was the first game you started entering competitions and decided, hey, that's a nice view of your keyboard there?
You're
Um,
welcome.
no, this answer is actually going to make you laugh because I went from Mortal Kombat to the first game that I actually started entering tournaments in. Actually, there's two. One of them would have been Super Smash Brothers Brawl. No surprise there. But
Right.
the other one that I actually really took super seriously and I practiced a lot and I started entering like actual money tournaments on was Dance Dance Revolution.
I'm not going to laugh at that. I ran national tournaments, so I
Oh, did you?
I was flown all over the country. If you played Extreme,
Yeah, Extreme.
okay.
That was
So, do you remember when? So back then, of course, all of the tournaments were one person picks a song, the other one person picks a song, the other person picks a song, blah blah blah. Eventually, that became very difficult because everybody could AAA everything. So I invented the mercenary rule set, based off of the Jaren Shadowstalker. Mercenary for Hire was always my tag name. The mercenary rule set was where we incorporated the marvelous steps by doing the nonstop mode for 2 songs. So if you ever played in a tournament that used that rule set, that was my rule set that I invented for national tournaments. I was
Dang,
really
all
big
right.
into DDR. In fact, like if you
One
look
around the
carefully
corner,
here,
yeah.
you'll see
Yo!
like this arcade sitting on the floor there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I have 3 DDR machines. I've got a Supernova. I've got a
Oh,
fully
goodness.
customized Solo, and that one there is running Super Disc, but I usually use Extreme Pro in there. So no, I'm not going to laugh about you playing DDR competitively.
I am in like complete and utter shock right now. All right, yeah, mine.
You didn't see that one coming, huh?
No, I did not. No, I did not. So everything has clearly come full circle because here we are talking about Mortal Kombat and DDR and Nintendo World Champ. Oh my goodness. All right. Wow. All right.
That's awesome. So you did that competitively for a while. What did you where did you go? Where did you play in the tournaments?
It was these local ones that was head by one person. I forgot his name, but
What state
this is one. Sorry?
What state were you in? Or if you were in Canada or wherever.
It was in Canada. It was here in Ontario. I think they took place at a place called the Palladium, also known as Sega City back in the day.
Sega City.
But the Palladium basically had a bunch of like they had multiple of these DDR cabinets when like it was at its peak. Multiple people would actually go there and show up and just start like competing against each other, and there would be like these crazy brackets, and everybody would just like try to triple A as all these songs, and I wouldn't last very long. I mean, I was okay at the game, but I wasn't hitting like, every single one with the same like perfect perfection as like all the other good players. But at least it was like my good first taste into like playing against other people in a very competitive scene. And from that point onwards, I just kept on like playing other games after that, and doing the same thing and just kind of like going after that competition.
Awesome. Very cool. And
18
so what about
million, by the way, for Chile? Just
18 million. All right, there you go. Well, I'm glad we finally got our
not
answer
quite
with Chile.
about half of California, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Dang. All right.
All right, there you go.
So what about Smash? Did you compete in Smash?
I did. Not anything super huge. I think the first major tournament that I actually went to was actually for Smash 4. It wasn't for Brawl. No, wait. Actually, there was a Brawl tournament that I attended back in like one of my first years of college. Actually, it was run by this person I who's actually a friend of mine. But he, there was like a lot of interest clearly in the game, and I was kind of like, all right, well, I play a lot of Smash, so I might as well just enter and see where I'm at, right? And yeah, I actually ended up winning that thing, which is really interesting. But like, the people at like a college level it's nowhere near the same level as like, if you go to like a local scene that actually purely Smash, like it's a completely different thing, right?
Absolutely.
But from all these kind of like small like experiences of like, playing in like these local scenes kind of like drove me to like find a bigger pool, I guess, of like where the stronger players are. And I think that's ultimately what people do when they get really into tournaments and invested in like just the early esports scene, get better. So obviously they try to find stronger players that they can actually spar with constantly and learn new things about themselves and the other matchups and other people in general.
Very cool. Yeah, and I will say that like there's always that one game that you feel really sparked that competitive spirit, and I always find it interesting what really did it for you. So Splatoon being the game that you obviously really focused on, do you still play?
I do actually. I still do. I actually captained 2 teams for each of them lasting over a year. The first one lasted, I think, a little over 2 years.
Nice.
No. It was a year and a half, and then the other was just a little over a year. And then I joined another one. I was not as a captain. I didn't want to take up the mantle leading a team at that point. I just wanted to try seeing what it was like to actually fall over once. And that was actually pretty cool. All 3 experiences, like we got to compete as a team, and but it was not just even like like playing as a team and as a group and competing in these tournaments. I was also one of the people that was organizing a lot of the events. I'm actually the person that organizes all the Toronto events here for Splatoon.
Awesome.
And that is actually the funny story of how I got in contact with the people in Nintendo Canada, and that's how they found me, actually.
Okay, interesting. So when you were running these events, were any of them Nintendo sanctioned, or did they end up sponsoring or in being involved in?
Yes and no. Here's how it works. It's like, okay, so we have a local Smash scene here, but that's actually run by a really cool person by the name of Toronto Joe. And he's known by and large by a lot of people in North America with regards to like just organizing Smash things. He's done a lot of major events, including Get on My Level, and I think he runs EXP. He ran 2018 and I think 2017. I'm not really too sure, but needless to say, he's run a lot of these super majors, and that kind of inspired me to think maybe I should do the same thing for Splatoon, because it's kind of like this growing game and there's clearly interest in it.
Yeah.
Not as much as Smash, but like I'm sure that if we were to really sell it as much as possible, like people would want to like get together, form teams, and see where they like how they do versus other teams, right? So I started running these events, and at first we didn't really have that much of a big gathering here in Toronto because it was still kind of like a new game and people were still like scattered all around the world. Usually a lot of the teams in early Splatoon were like comprised of like one person is like in the US, another person's in Canada, and one person like, everybody was just scattered all over the place, right?
Right.
So finding a local team was very, very difficult. And so like even making these events as like a local thing, it was you didn't really have that big of a turnout as well. But still, I was kind of pretty determined to actually make the scene grow as much as possible, and it did eventually. So, but my thing too is like I said to myself, I'm organizing these events here in Toronto. I'm sure if I try to like sell this to Nintendo Canada as being like, hey, look, I'm trying my best to sort of like promote your game and get more people into this. If you have any support that you want to give us, that'd be awesome, right? But I didn't actually directly contact them. I was thinking about it. Instead, the other way happened. They found out that I was running these events, and they got in contact with me instead. And a representative from Nintendo Canada basically told me that, hey, listen, we have a convention coming up, which is called Fan Expo. I'm not sure if you guys heard of Fan Expo, but it's like, it's very similar. It's like a very nerdy con, right? Like, and they have like anime and comic books and gaming.
As opposed to non-nerdy cons. Sorry.
There you go. Okay.
Touche.
Yeah. But anyways, what was it? Yeah, Nintendo contacted me and they said we wanted to we have a Nintendo booth set up for Fan Expo, and we were hoping that we wanted to show off Splatoon 2, which was actually the new game that came out for that summer in 2017. And they said, we wanted to have like a tournament, but we don't really know who to contact in the scene or locally. And since you've done all these events, would you happen to have like a list of names of players that would be interested? Like if they were invited, would they be able to come here and like compete in front of like a bunch of people, like in a live audience, and see, like, just to sort of promote the game, right? It's like, this is Splatoon at the top level, right? And I literally remember telling them, if you want, I could just organize the entire thing for you, and like get the players and get in contact with everyone, and yeah, like I can just try my best to organize the whole thing for you and see where that goes. And they said, okay, cool.
Nice.
So
good for them.
That's actually really good. You point that out. I think that was fantastic that like they actually did reach out, because I think there's always like this big divide between the community and corporate, right?
Right. I mean, they how long do they ignore the Smash Brothers community? I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
Right.
There's been like a whole history behind that, especially with like Nintendo and Evo and what's happened.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. So this is like kind of groundbreaking, because it was like one of the first times that they actually reached out to someone and said, hey, if help us help you and you will help us in return. I don't know, it's kind of like a joint venture, right? So yeah, I organized the entire thing for them. Needless to say, Fan Expo was like a huge success. The players were happy, the people at the from Nintendo were really, really happy, and we organized a really successful event, and it was super hype. There was a large crowd, and I'm sure that must have like promote the game to a certain degree, especially around the Toronto area in Fan Expo. They were really happy with it, with what I did. And I think I remember it was a call that I received like, what was it, a couple of weeks later. The representative told me that like, oh, like you did such an outstanding job running the Fan Expo, but like we felt bad that you didn't really actually get to play because you were the one organizing the event. And then they told me, have you ever heard of the Nintendo World Championships? And that's where like my jaw just dropped.
wow.
Yeah. So this is interesting because
are you streaming at this point? Do you have any kind of following, or are you just doing local stuff?
I actually did have I actually did stream fairly often at the time. I think back then I was like streaming maybe like 2 or 3 times a week. I was predominantly like a Smash and Splatoon streamer. I wasn't like super well known or super out there. I was just kind of like a person that was starting to gain a little bit of a following, because I was like doing this as often as possible, and I was trying to be like this I was trying to be like an internet personality at the time, right?
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, I wasn't really anything but like compared to the other people that were like showed up, like Bailey and what was it? Like Zerk or Asa Butterfield. Like I wasn't on that level at the time anyways, right? Like I wasn't, and like I was just it's like I was Dan S, and everybody was just kind of like, who's that person, right? So it was kind of interesting, but actually, Chris, I wanted to let you know something. This is kind of funny too. I remember back in 2015, I was actually watching the Nintendo World Championships 2015 with my now current roommate, and I remember we were both watching it with the live stream, and we were sitting there in the living room, and I think at one point, like after we finished, like we were like halfway watching the entire thing, and I looked at the screen, and I'm like, man, it would be such a dream to actually compete live. But it would never happen. I said, like, it would never actually happen. And 2 years later, lo and behold, I actually got the opportunity to do that. So,
Never say
Wow,
never.
that feels good. Thank you. I mean, I'm sure my portion of that helped you, but we put on a good show. But
amazing show.
so, like, how old are you, by the way? Just to try to I'm trying to get a context of.
Yeah. Currently, I'm 32.
Okay, so I guess when you were playing Mortal Kombat, it was probably 3, 4, 5 years behind the trends from the United States, basically, when you're in Chile.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And then but the good thing is you got an introduction to the old stuff. Like you were talking before, pull up that little device you have in front of you.
Ta-da!
Nice.
And the game inside.
Tetris.
And
oh yeah.
And who was the only competent person at 2017 in that particular game on that stage that day?
Oh, that was
I don't know what
painful.
direction you are going to be on the stream, but it's that guy. James Chen had like a amazing rant about how terrible the play it was, because it was all kids playing in the underground except for you. And Game Boy Tetris is brutal if you're not used to the stickiness of those pieces.
Insta-lock, yeah.
Insta-lock. It's even stickier than the NES version. Like the tucks are even harder, and it started at level 10. And you were the only one who got a Tetris, and they didn't. Apparently, you were telling me you got a couple Tetrises, but they only showed one because the coverage was they were going back and forth. They weren't showing all the screens at one time. But you got your boom Tetris moment.
Yeah.
And
there was actually I got
event.
one Tetris in the very beginning of the thing, and then one at the end, and then I also got a third one, but like it was off camera. So, in terms of point value, I think I was like way above the others in terms of points, I believe.
Right.
But it was funny because while I was competing and doing that entire thing, I was just saying in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh man, I'm doing really, really badly. I'm gonna lose this one. And I was already super tired by that point because it was already hours into the Nintendo World Championship.
Yeah.
And I just finished like this perilous Donkey Kong minecart run that like probably shaved off a couple of years of my lifespan just from sheer nervous, sheer nerves at the entire thing. So, but yeah, like I made it through that. And I'm like, okay, cool. On to the next round.
Yeah. Did you hear a lot of complaints from the other competitors about Tetris? Like, what was because it seemed like nobody had even played it. Like, what was kind of the reaction to some of the players?
Oh, actually, I had a couple of conversations with the people that actually played the Tetris. One of my buddies who I actually keep in frequent contact with now, his name is Marky. When he was playing that round, he was just kind of like, I'm so used to playing Puyo Tetris, I think, and it's a lot more forgiving.
Oh yeah.
But this one, it's like
just a tad.
You can almost infinite spin in Puyo Tetris.
Yeah, and you can hold blocks, and I think
yeah.
I was asking, it's just like, I don't know what the button for the holding block is, and I'm like, oh, you're only they don't have that.
Right.
No.
This is cutthroat Tetris.
Exactly.
You guys are playing on GameCube controllers for that? Because was it on a Game Boy player?
No, actually, it was. Believe it or not, it was actually on a 3DS. And
Oh,
there
that's
was
right.
actually,
That's right.
yeah, there was actually a time when the 3DS eShop actually did have that exact same version of Tetris available in the shop. One of my old 3DSs actually did have it, but I think the licensing ran out, and they don't actually have it on the eShop anymore, which was like, it made me really sad because I actually lost that 3DS. Luckily, I I got the 3DS that they sent me for the Nintendo World Championships, which I have right here.
Nice.
Keep that. Keep
I know
keep that.
it's a
Put it in
relic. I'm gonna
yeah.
so yeah, it's a relic. I love it. I'm gonna keep it for sure. But yeah, I remember like when I tried to re-download it, it wasn't on the eShop anymore, and I was really sad about that. But you know, I have the original, so it's fine.
Right. Very cool. Yeah, I just think it's interesting, like the games that they chose. Talk to me about what your, what your feeling is about the games that they put together for the tournament. Which games did you feel comfortable going in, and were there any that you just never touched or seen before?
The game selection was okay. So when we were backstage and they were doing like the intros and stuff like that, and we were all sitting, we all had to stand in like a line because we had our spots on stage of where we're supposed to stand and where we're supposed to go and how we get on stage and how we get off stage, right? But as we were waiting to get on the stage, we were all standing in line. We were just all nervously looking at each other. And it's just like, do you know what games they're going to be playing? All right, we're going to be playing. We're probably going to be playing Smash, right? Yeah, we're definitely going to be playing Smash. Are we going to be playing this? And we were just like kind of like talking amongst ourselves what exactly lies ahead of us. And I think like most of us were like, even John Numbers was actually throwing like he was saying, "Oh, we're probably going to be playing stuff on the SNES Classic because I think that little machine just came out that exact same time."
Right.
But sorry.
Oh, it's funny because before when there was a threat of us 15ers, we were all trying to qualify for 17, and only John did it. But when after he won, we were all throwing out suggestions, and I said that there was not going to be a Wii U within 5 miles of the venue because the Wii U is such a bomb. But they actually brought it back for Smash, and they used it quite a bit. I think. What I don't did they use
They
the Wii U
did.
for? Yeah, I
They
was
did.
really surprised.
They used the Wii U, believe it or not, for they used it for Smash in the home run contest. They used it for the minecart run
Yeah.
because we were playing Donkey Kong Country Returns, and the Wii was backwards compatible, so they used that. And then they also used it for Mario Party because it was an eShop title.
Oh.
Exactly. So like when we were playing Smash, we had to get off the stage and we had to go into like this bottom area where the Wii U was actually set up. And then later that evening, when we were still around to actually play Mario Party 2, which was the final underground, we had to actually go back down there. And we didn't know we were playing Mario Party, but we called like it was the Wii U area, right? So like as soon as we had to step down there, we're just kind of like, okay, what is going on, right? Because it's like we already played Smash here, so.
What controller did they make you use for that then? Was it Pro controllers?
Yeah, it was Pro controllers that I think that were attached to the not the nunchuck, the Wiimote.
Yeah.
Was it?
Well, the Wii U just had those Pro controllers with no attachment. They were just wireless. They didn't. So I don't know. That's
Yeah. It was the classic controller. Yeah, it was the classic controller.
Oh, the classic controller was plugged into the Wiimote. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a Wii. Jesus Christ, the backwards go Nintendo, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, well, I guess we'll go back to when they called you about being in the NWC, and this is like out of left field completely. And was this before they even announced NWC? Because that kind of came out of left field too. Like
by that time, they had announced the qualifiers. This was around August. No, sorry, early September, like really, really early September. I think it was the same week as Labor Day because we just the week after Labor Day.
Okay, yeah.
And so second week of September, that's when they called me up. And I think the qualifiers were just finished around that time. I'm not really too sure if they were still taking place. I think they were kind of like doing it in multiple different states and then they had to cancel a couple because of the weather or something like that. I think there was like a hurricane.
They canceled Miami and they were doing 2 cities at a time for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So they ended up just doing 7 and having a wild card show up. But like, was Canadian? I think were Canadians eligible because they weren't in 15, but I think they weren't eligible in 17 either. Okay.
No, they weren't. But that's kind of also the reason why they sent me is because Nintendo of America actually asked them, we need a Canadian representative, because they had Asa Butterfield as the UK representative.
Yep.
They had 360 Crescent from Germany. They had Wisa Sarah from Mexico. They had myself from Canada, and then they had another person actually.
Yellow Killer Bee. Where is she from?
Yellow Killer Bee. I think she's no, actually, you know what? I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up, but I think she might be another like outside invitee. But I
Right.
think they were doing that in the tradition of like it's the Nintendo World Championship, so they wanted to have like people from different countries to come in so that they can represent them.
Well, I mean, they did pretty well because 15 they just brought in a Mexican runner. I think that was the only foreign player at all. So they did a little bit better. But the world has always been kind of a running joke with these tournaments. It's always pretty much been an American Championship. However, the one time Jeff Hansen, who won in '90 as the 12 and under, faced the Japanese champion, he smoked him. So we on Japanese TV it was kind of brutal. But
Nice.
yeah, but it's one of those nerdy facts that only Dory and I really care about. But that's why we do this podcast.
That's right. To collect and gather.
Yep.
Yeah. So actually, interesting note that I want to also add on too is that when they were asking me, they weren't really sure that they were going to go with me at the time. I wasn't given the full details, but they had asked me what they wanted, like me to give them a full, complete list of competitive games that I've played or things I've known, right? So like I had to go home and like I write up a huge list and pull up like my entire history of like what games have I played competitively or things that I actually feel confident in actually playing. And when I sent that in, I think the reasoning behind that or what they had told me is because they wanted to compare me to like a couple of other people that they were thinking in mind. And since, you know, with the spirit of the Nintendo World Championships, you want to be able to be as good as many different games as possible.
Yep.
I think they probably went with me because I had like a pretty large pool of things that I played, and even just like from the stuff that I've already told you, like, you know, Mortal Kombat when I was like 9, and then I played DDR and Smash and like a bunch of other things that I was already involved with, Splatoon, League of Legends, competitive StarCraft. Like there was just a bunch of different things that I played all over the place.
I'd love to see that
Competitive
email.
StarCraft. So I, of course, have to ask about competitive StarCraft because I did that for a while too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was in PGL back in the day, if you remember that, before they kind of changed names. And so what did you play StarCraft-wise? Did you play original, Brood War, or what?
I actually played StarCraft 2 at the time.
StarCraft
I
2.
was
Oh, God.
I liked original StarCraft, but like I wasn't really all that great at it. But it still made me like want to, like, I was doing one, they had the early BattleNet, like there was the ladder, and I think you had to like had a certain rating in order to actually be able to play on the ladder.
Yeah.
I never really had a really great rating on the ladder, but like it was, for me, it was still more about the competition, getting better and seeing where you go with that rather than like, you know, placing high at a tournament. I was definitely in there for the mentality of like I enjoy the actual journey, not the destination.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, we my roommate and I were really, really into StarCraft back then, and we took second season 1 on the season 1 BattleNet ladder for StarCraft 1. So,
Oh my goodness.
give you an idea of how much we used to play.
Oh man.
So yeah, it was interesting times. I was a huge RTS fan. Like I grew up with Warcraft 2. Really, that was kind of like the game that
I
made
love
me
Warcraft
fall in
2.
love. Yeah, it's what made me fall in love with RTS. Unfortunately, by the time StarCraft 2 had come out, I moved on. You know, I was doing FPS and some other stuff around then. I can't remember. I had already died off of fighting games, so I'm not sure what else was kind of taking up my time at that point. But yeah, StarCraft 2 took too long to come out, unfortunately. The development cycle, I was already past my prime, and my APMs were really low, and I was just like, this isn't going to work this time.
Mhm.
So it's always good to hear, though, that, you know, somebody else was competitive in StarCraft, because I do actually think to this day that competitive StarCraft is probably the pinnacle of gaming in general, because the amount of skill that it takes to be top level at that game is well beyond anything else that I played. And, you know, I played a lot of competitive games, including Street Fighter and everything else.
Would you call it kind of the perfect balance between physical skill and mental strategy? Like it's
That's
kind of,
really, yeah. That's really spot on.
It's so mechanical. Like you have to be crazy at it, and just like all the just even with the commands, you have to be like you have to like just strategize and think on top of just actually making sure that all your key bindings are like as perfect. You're not missing one thing, because if somebody's really really good, they'll punish you for that. So
Yeah, mental fortitude, stamina in general. Like when it comes to the mental stamina that you need in order to stay competitive in that game, just every single game is so taxing in comparison to anything else that I played. So,
yeah.
it's really impressive to see, professional level StarCraft players to me, professional level RTS players in general. So, kudos there.
What's kind of the big RTS game going around now? I'm out of it. I'm old. I don't know these things anymore.
I mean, the reality is instead of RTS, it's really MOBA these days.
Yeah,
I mean, StarCraft 2 is still the biggest RTS, but MOBA was born of RTS anyway. So all of big secret. League of Legends, Dota, all of those games came from what were called use map setting games back in the RTS days. And what that meant was basically somebody designed a custom map that had specific objectives. And so they did that in StarCraft, and then more importantly, they did it in Warcraft 3. And Warcraft 3, the people who created a really cool Defense of the Ancients map ended up moving on, trying to sell that idea to Blizzard. And instead, they ended up making their own company when Blizzard said, "We're not going to take that and run with it." So that's the birth of MOBA. And now you know why those games are considered kind of RTS-ish.
There's something to be said for that, and just in general, when like the community bands together and they have like this really really solid idea that doesn't necessarily like go the way like a corporate would actually, a corporate environment would actually want or envision rather. Because even like with just early esports, and it was just all these like, it was just like a plethora of like all these great ideas that we're actually implementing now, that like companies like Nintendo actually do like they do implement, they actually do see, and they say, yeah, this is legit, this is real, right? But how long did it take for like a competitor like the community of Smash Brothers to actually get together and like say, look, this is what we have, it's growing, it's real, it's big? And then now that Nintendo finally realizes that, and they say, yeah, okay, cool, we can actually build around that. So it's incredible, right?
Yeah, and the world is changing quickly too when it comes to that mentality of these companies. I think that they've all come to realize that without that, actually, I shouldn't even say that, because if you look at what just happened with Namco Bandai and the whole DBZ debacle that's been going on and everything else. So I think that gaming companies have come around, but there's still going to be some challenges in getting the world to just accept the fact that without that community-driven focus, their game is going to die. So I completely agree with you, and it's good to see Nintendo come around, because I did have a period where I started worrying about them. I mean, Nintendo's going to always be my favorite. I for those that know me, they know that I work for Microsoft, and I love Nintendo still. Like it doesn't matter to me that I'm not a fanboy. I just love Nintendo. So I was worried that at some point it was going to bite them in the butt, all of this negative publicity they were getting about going after, telling Evo that they can't stream their games. And I'm just like, at some point, somebody's got to step up and realize that they need this in order to survive. So,
yep. It's a commercial. Why would you turn down free commercials? But what do I know? Let's kind of go back to your story then. When you get the phone call, you sent this email. By the way, keep that email. One of these days we're gonna have an archive, and I'd love to get a copy of that. Sure. But so you're on the plane. Who's your plus one, and what do you expect going in? Kind of tell us the in between part when you're invited to go and landing in New York City.
Okay, cool. So what ended up, actually, it was a little bit of a funny story. So at first I'm the kind of person where I don't believe something until like I'm literally experiencing it. So the entire time I'm just kind of like, okay, cool, Nintendo World Championships, awesome idea. I don't know if it's gonna happen. And even like when they, like all this news, Nintendo likes to keep under wraps, make sure that nobody like gets all that information out. So It wasn't like, to me, it was like pretty easy to not really say that out loud, because it's like I at first I myself didn't even believe it, right? Like I'm just like, okay, I'm being considered for a person to be in the Nintendo World Championships, but like I was just also kind of like in disbelief because of the fact that of like I don't see myself as one of the people to like be on stage with like really known names. Like, you had Ego Raptor on the 2015 one. I'm like, he's a person that I really admire and look up to, and I've been watching Game Grumps for so long, and for me to be like considered on that same level is just like, I don't know, right? But regardless, like, I think they asked me, it's like, okay, you're allowed to bring a +1. So at the time I was actually dating an old teammate of mine, who's actually a really good friend of mine now still. And I think I told her that if she would be okay with coming with me. It was actually on her birthday that I told her, which is really cool.
Nice.
So it was just kind of like, happy birthday, we're going to New York.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it was interesting too, because she's also a really strong Splatoon player, just as much as I was. And I think we were like also kind of just excited at the idea of like, oh wow, you're gonna be able to play Splatoon on the Nintendo World Championships. So I'm like, well, maybe, but we'll see what happens, right?
Right.
But anyways, I was given the ticket, and as soon as I got on the plane, I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is actually happening, right? Like, it's actually sinking in.
Yeah.
So we arrive in New York, and also keep in mind, this is the first time I've ever actually gone to New York. Like, I haven't been to the States since I was a baby, actually.
Wow.
And so I don't even remember this. So literally, this was like my first time setting foot on like into the US on my own, or yeah, pretty much like with my +1. But it's been so long, so it was like the whole thing was like really overwhelming. But I managed to find my way to the hotel, and then the next day I got to meet with the people that were like expecting us there, and like we got to talk to like some really cool people and all the other competitors that were there. And we were there for like about a week, but they had like a series of like different events planned for us. The first day that we went there, they had like this cool little mixer party that they had, which was they blocked off the second floor of the Nintendo New York store, and we basically just got to party there and play a bunch of games and just enjoy food.
Nice.
And this but is interesting because it kind of ties into like the question that you asked me earlier about like the game selection. You're gonna enjoy this. So when we went there and we actually got to play a bunch of the games, it wasn't in such a way that like, it wasn't like just a bunch of stations and you just like, oh, like they have, like, you can play whatever you want and like just enjoy your time with the other people that are also participating. You got to enjoy the games. Like, for example, they would have a Smash booth set up. But it wasn't just like you just grab the controller and you play 8-player Smash or 4-player Smash with whoever was there. It was actually set up to the home run contest, and you could only do the home run contest.
Interesting.
So when this is happening, are you thinking ahead that this is like you're in reality show mode and you're being tested? Did that occur to you at that moment?
No. Nobody there thought that. So everybody's just kind of like, oh, cool, home run contest. Let's play home run contest. And everybody's just playing home run contest. Then there was also a booth set up with the Nintendo Switch, and they had Zelda Breath of the Wilds actually set up. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, cool, I've never actually played Breath of the Wild, so I'm going to go ahead and play, right? So I go to the booth, and they had Breath of the Wild set up, but it was not at the very beginning of the game. It was actually set up on the top of this icy mountain. And I'm just kind of like, what is this, someone else's save file? I mean, I don't want to like play if somebody else is here. So I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm just gonna just play for like a couple of minutes and then leave it. So then I remember I was with my +1, and we go over to like the 3DS section. I'm like, oh cool, 3DSs. I got one like in the mail, so I just want to see what kind of games they have set up there.
I was about to ask about that.
Yeah, so the 3DSs, get this. I go over and one of the games that they had set up was Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh, cool. I used to play Donkey Kong Country all the time in the SNES. So, like, this is... I wonder how, like, the new ones are like, right? So I pick up the 3DS and I start playing, and it was actually on a level that had a minecart on it. And I jump in, and I die in, like, the first 10 seconds. Like as soon as the thing, I jump, I die, and I just put down the 3DS. I'm like, well, that was fun. So I'll just move on to the next. And like the person I was with at the time was just like kind of laughed at that. It's just like, well, hopefully you don't have to play Donkey Kong Country.
So she knew, but never.
No,
Wow.
that's funny. She didn't know that like like we were all clueless at the idea that like okay, we were going to be playing these games at the Nintendo World Championships. But of course, there was a Splatoon booth set up there, so I got to play some Splatoon. And I think some people were watching me and they were like asking me some tips on like how to actually play this and that. I'm like, okay, cool. Like I play a lot of Splatoon, so and I remember also John Numbers was actually watching me, and he was like he was also kind of like in the back, just like kind of watching me play and like getting some idea of like, okay, he's doing this, he's doing that, right? So because like I think at that point I already solidified myself as like the Splatoon person. There was an ARMS booth set up, and Zerk was playing, and he would actually won the ARMS Invitational that was set up earlier that year.
Yeah.
So like that's also the reason why he was invited to the Nintendo World Championships. Tuberon, who was also another invitee, he was invited because he won the Smash
San
Brothers
Diego Comic-Con.
Exactly, yeah. So he was invited, and he was like pretty much spending a lot of his time playing the home run contest, I think, and Smash with other players as well. But yeah, like everybody was like kind of into their own thing, and you can kind of tell like who was good at what based on like they were like showing each other how to play. John Numbers was interesting too because it's like everybody knew who was participating, that he would won the 2015 one. So I think it was kind of like this really, really wholesome moment where he was actually playing Pokken Tournament, which was actually one of the games that we didn't get to play at the Nintendo World Championships. But there was a booth set up with that. And there was just like a bunch of the younger players, like I think like age 10 to 12 to 13, and they all kind of like crowded around him, and he was like, it's like, oh, can you teach me how to do this, how to do that? And yeah, John Numbers was like more than happy to like teach them. He was like showing them all these really cool tricks and stuff like that. So it was kind of like a really interesting moment of like current generation gamer, of like a person that's clearly super experienced, passing on this knowledge to like
That's awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really cool. And even for me, like there was like the people that were asking me like, should I do this in Splatoon? Should I do that in Splatoon? And I was just kind of like showing them basic weapon setups and stuff that they should become accustomed to, and like what kind of play style are they preferred? Are they more of like a sniper play style, or do they like to be like really upfront in the battle and just kind of be like a main slayer with a, you know what I mean, with a spotter shot? So yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah, and I will say, like, I thought it was awesome that they did the multi-age brackets and everything else again, and just kind of breaking up a little bit. I mean, not entirely, just breaking up the groups a little bit more so that way you can kind of see more interesting play. I will say, obviously, there's always going to be the most competitive bracket. That happened with 90. It happened with 2015. I mean, with 2017. Sorry. So there's always going to be that factor to it. But I definitely thought it was good that they kind of split it up and made it more interesting, because you're right. You're really looking at the passing of the torch to the next generation, and the kids that got into there, they're not going to realize it for quite some time, but that's going to probably spark a lot of their interest in even stuff beyond gaming, just competitive nature in general. Like it's so fun to actually have that experience at a young age. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah. I do think that, yeah, exactly as you said, the joining of the bridging of these the different age groups, it creates a really, really interesting dynamic where you have like the veterans who are clearly really, really good at games that were displayed more or less in the underground, which are more classics. And they're giving this really this vital information to a new generation that like clearly wants to know more about like the early esports and how it relates to now. It was interesting because a lot of those moments I saw, those times when I was actually back in South America, like facing off against the high schoolers.
There you
were
are.
really, really good at more. Exactly. It was the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So and these high schoolers, some of them like are very brutal when they play, but like if you ask them like, can you teach me how to do this? Can you teach me how to do that? They'd be more than happy to do it, right? Because like in the end, if you get better, you become a better sparring partner to them,
That's right.
and they get better because of that too. So that's kind of like one of the things that kind of kept driving me on esports and becoming eventually a community organizer, where it's like, you have the drawing of like the older and the younger generations, and gaming is for everyone. It's not meant to be exclusive, right?
Yeah. Do you get a lot of kids showing up at your events?
Yeah, actually, we get all sorts of age groups. We get people that are older than I am, and people that are like super young coming in with their parents, right?
Awesome.
And like they can see like the kids are clearly having a great time just with people of like different age groups. I try to keep like a really healthy atmosphere. Nobody feels excluded, nobody feels alienated, and this is exactly kind of like what gaming has kind of led up to, because like back then it wasn't really about that. I mean, I was still kind of in this, I'm sure both of you will probably agree if you've had these moments where it's like, you're a kid growing up, you're playing video games, and then like your parents are telling you, stop playing video games, it's bad for you, right? It's like it's bad for your health, right? But now like it's 2019, we're having like these esports local events, tournaments, or what have you, or just kind of like these fun community events where people are encouraged to go out and play and meet new people, and it becomes like the most social thing ever. And it's like, how did it become like this negative stigma of like being the most unhealthy obsession ever to like it helping people like discover more about themselves, right?
You stuff that you run, stuff that I run, not to your degree, but getting people together and communicating, and that's the gap. Because if you can easily just sit at home, or be a game collector and just buy a bunch of games and miserly sit on a big giant collection and never play them and never communicate with anybody, and oh look this, and then just talk shit on a message board. So like it's you have to actually go outside of your house. Like playing online is toxic because you don't have that actual human to human contact. To me, maybe these tournament scenes, some are pretty bad, but it just seems like you need to have that other person in there and they can actually connect with that other person, and then it goes from there, and it makes it way more much of a positive experience. So
plateauing is real. Plateauing is extremely real, and plateauing is where you can beat all of your friends. Okay, I can beat all my friends. Like you need to be able to expand out. The internet does give people the ability to start to branch out, but the problem is if you don't have that grassroots, there's the organizers in your area that can really get people together to learn from each other and so on and so forth. If you don't have people that are willing to take on a mentor role within those local tournaments and everything else, that experience that you get online isn't going to really make you better, because you're just going to get stomped by someone, and you're only going to play them once because they're not going to want to play you again if you lose that bad. So like you really need that. Otherwise, you're going to plateau, and you'll be the guy that can beat all of your friends. And then as soon as you go play somebody that's in the competitive world, you're going to get curb stomped and go, wait, what just happened? I don't understand how this player is that much better than me when I'm so good against everyone that I know. So to your point, when you were talking about the fact that, people want to build up other people because that helps them, to get better and so on and so forth, that's exactly right. What it comes down to is if you make your friends better players, they're going to make you a better player, because the faster you plateau and you run out of people that, that you can learn from, you're done. You're not going to get any better than that.
Yep.
Do you think having the kids there put you at ease a bit? I can my experience in 2015 is we're all 20 to 30, whatever. I was 37 at the time. So and it was pretty professional. Everybody's kind of tight-lipped and a little tense, and we didn't really start enjoying ourselves till after it was over. I tried to be 13 years old, and I think I did an okay job of that, but everybody else wasn't having any of that. So like having the kids there and their parents there, do you think that kind of lightened up the mood there at all? Do you think that, I mean, for you personally, not just what do you, I don't know, maybe.
All right.
Like if you were in a room with like other professional streamers, gamers, that sort of thing, what do you think the difference would have been? Just sorry, I don't know how to properly phrase the question, but Instead of your influence on them, what's their influence on you? How about that? Thank you. Edit all that out.
That's good. I like that.
God damn it, Chris.
I'm a bit of a different beast because the thing is that I'm one of those kind of people where it's like no matter how important or how like how much of a celebrity status someone might have, I'll still go up to them and be like, "Hey, what's up?" Right? Yep. And I think that's kind of like how I became really, really close with a cool person there, Asa Butterfield. Like, you know, everybody was just kind of like, you know, you're a movie actor or movie star and you're an actor and you're all this and that. But like, actually, I was actually having the after party dinner. I was actually sitting down at the same table with him. We were just talking about Smash and just hanging out and just throwing it up. And then I think a couple of times there was just like some fans that came over and it's like, oh my goodness, you're Asa Butterfield. Can you please sign this, right? But I think people like him tend to appreciate someone when they don't think of them as like the odd, like, you know, the star status.
Right.
And that's whenever I approach someone, I'm just gonna like, even if they're like someone who's really well known, I just treat them like a human being because deep down I think that that's what everybody wants to be treated like, right? But anyways, getting back to the question too, is that when I was in the room, we had like another lunch actually where it was everyone there just kind of hanging out, and I think I was sitting at the same table with Bailey, the WWE superstar. But it's same idea. I was
women's champion, I believe now.
Yeah, I was just kind of like sitting there and just hanging out, and we were just talking, like talking about video games and stuff, and like, cool, it's gonna be really awesome, like we'll be able to compete and stuff like that. I just became like super close with a lot of the people there, just because to me, I was like this, I felt like this outsider, but I also wanted to make my presence known. Like I'm not just like this weird like random inclusion. I was really well known in the Splatoon community. I'm really good at this game. I'm like the team captain. And I've got this diverse background of game. So like I had confidence that I was gonna do all right. I didn't know how well I was gonna do, but I was hoping I wasn't gonna be out in the first 2 rounds, right?
Yeah.
Did you know going in that everybody's going to the same group? When was the format revealed to you?
That's an interesting question. It wasn't really revealed. I kind of based it on what 2015 was. I thought to myself, right, okay, it's going to be all of us competing in these games and people are going to be eliminated slowly, little by little, right? So I just kind of assumed that like that was just going to be the case, and that's how it was.
I think figured everybody'd be together. You knew? Did you figure they'd be all together? Or that it would divide you up?
Yeah, they did have us together, but for some of the games, since obviously it was like 24, 25 people, they had to divide us into like several groups. So they had like a wave A and a wave B for like the home run contest,
right?
And they had also, yeah, for the first game, the first set of games, the first round, which was 3 games, the shield surfing, they had like a set of multiple players playing at the same time, and then they also had to do it again, but like for the second wave. And I think they only did that for that one. No, they did it for the second round, which was Smash, because they had 16 players left for round 2, and it was 2 sets of 8-player Smash.
Right.
And then that's where it started to get little by little, because you know by the 3rd round it was only 8 players, and they play 8-player Mario Kart. No, wait, 12-player Mario Kart, and then 8-player Splatoon, and then 4-player ARMS, and they just kept on dwindling down and down from that point onwards. But yeah, like to answer your question, I assumed that it was going to be the 2015 format, and yeah, we were just all going to be playing together.
Wow. That just, I mean, we touched on it before, but that just still blows my mind that they had the kids competing against the other older divisions, and they fought like hell. And one of my favorite moments, I think, from that tournament, I think it was the winner from Chicago, Abe, the 12 and under, and he just totally choked on shield surfing, and he was the last one out there. And the crowd, being from New York, I was thinking, oh God, they're gonna just razz the hell out of him. They're gonna Brooklyn cheer him. No, but it was the most supportive, awesome moment when everybody just started chanting his name, and he got through it, and he actually didn't get eliminated. I think he survived.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he made it to round 2. So he made up in the next 2 games. He did not get eliminated, even though he had the worst shield surfing portion. And the interesting thing was they sent you all 3DSs, right? Did the celebrities get them too? Like, did you get a 3DS beforehand with the Metroid race?
Yep, they're all right here.
So
this
you got the they told you what it was. They sent you the game. You practice it, right? Because there was a couple of people who were terrible at that. It's like there was no excuse for not practicing that. They sent you the damn system, guys. That's like the one complaint I'll have about anybody in that tournament.
But did they tell them that was going to be in the
Yes.
tournament?
Oh, yeah, they did. But
they published it.
Yeah.
Okay, so they sent us the 3DSs. We got it like a week before the Nintendo World Championships, right? So like a week. It's a fairly big chunk of time to actually be able to play the Metroid game that they actually sent us. Yeah. And they told us also by that time that Metroid is going to be on the Nintendo World Championships. So we're like, okay, cool, Metroid. But the thing is though, the game is really long, right? Yeah. Like and the portion that we played, which was the digger, the digger portion.
Hell of a boss too, yeah.
Yeah, none of us played that portion because it was so far into the game, and by the time we arrived there, none of us had gotten to that point. None of us had gotten to that point. So
that actually does make sense, yeah.
I thought they told you that it was going to be the digger, though.
But even if they told them, it's not like they could have just breezed through the game. They have other stuff going on in life and so on and so forth. I mean, it took me. No. I mean, I had played the original version of it and everything else, so I knew the game pretty well. That really is pretty deep in.
Yeah. They told us that Metro was going to be in it, but we never knew that it was going to be the digger portion. So that's like, we had a rehearsal night the day before, and we were basically revealed that we're going to be playing the first 3 rounds, which was Zelda Shield Surfing, Home Run Contest, and of course the Metroid the Metroid portion, which is the digger portion. And that's where we all had the aha moment, because as soon as they revealed that, instantly the little mixer party that we had
upstairs,
which was we were just kind of like, oh my goodness, they totally trolled us, and we're going to be playing those games, right?
Yeah.
So suddenly that whole thing had significance, right? But anyways, we had a rehearsal, and when we did the shield surfing, nobody passed it. Like, nobody beat the shield surfing on the first run. And then the second round, which was home run contest, everybody did it as best they could, but nobody was playing either Ganondorf or Roy, which was kind of like the established meta for like doing really, getting a really high score in the home run contest. And then finally, when we played the Metroid portion, everybody was just kind of like, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. So we all died horribly. Nobody made it to the end.
Right.
It was an absolute disaster. But I think that's kind of like the whole purpose of the rehearsal, is like to give us a like, this is what you guys are going to be playing, so you better practice tonight, right?
Yeah.
So that entire night, I think everybody went back to their hotel rooms and just dug out their copies of Breath of the Wild, and they just started practicing the shield surfing. I didn't have Breath of the Wild at the time, but the person that I brought with me as my +1, she had Breath of the Wild, and she actually had that save point set up because she actually had shield surfing. So I was forever grateful for that.
That helps.
And also I was like looking up some things with regards to like the what was it? Like any speed runs or anything like that. Yeah, and I had like maybe a couple of hours after the whole thing just to practice before I went back to sleep, right? But I couldn't really find that information.
Yeah, slept. Are you kidding me?
No, I mean, the secret to performing well in any tournament is to get as much rest as possible. Or, I mean, that's my secret. But
if only we had known that in '94. We were up all night the night before the tournament playing Donkey Kong.
I'm so used to being like, since I was the team captain of my team at the time, I'm always like, whenever we have a major tournament the next day, I'm like, all right, guys, drink lots of water, get lots of rest, and we'll see you the next day, and we'll try to do as best we can, and we usually do pretty well.
Man, Captain Discipline over here. Look at this guy.
Well, you know.
Man, have you ever gone to Evo? Like, sleep.
Yeah, I know nobody sleeps there.
I used to bounce
from
the salty suite.
Oh my goodness! Like I've gone to Smash and Splash and Genesis. Like I went to Genesis 5 and Genesis 6 recently, and yeah, like not many people get a lot of sleep there, but that's because like everybody's having such a fun time and playing as many games as they can, right? But like, yeah, I imagine nobody gets sleep with like these really really big competitions. So, um, but I don't know. I was just trying to be like say to myself, it's gonna obviously be a really big event, and there's gonna be like, how long was the actual thing? It was like 6 hours.
Yeah,
It was pretty bad. And what was your report time in the morning? Because the tournament I think started about 6 or 7.
Yeah, we were supposed to be there like around 4, 5, 3 o'clock, somewhere around there, just to sort of get ready.
So what are you doing in the morning? God, you're not gonna go sightseeing or anything. Some people went sightseeing. I basically just practiced more. I think I was playing a lot of arms because I'm like, I'm not sure if this is gonna be on the thing, or I'm gonna be playing it, but I might as well practice it as much as possible. I had enough money at the time, just like spare cash in that was given to me, to either buy Mario Kart or ARMS. I didn't think to buy Breath of the Wild because I didn't think we were actually going to be playing it, but I'm like, of these two games, I'm definitely sure, like I'm pretty sure we're going to be playing either ARMS or Mario Kart. And I know how to play Mario Kart. It's very easy to pick up and play. But being good at it is a different. Well, yeah, that's against those killers. Jesus Christ.
I mean, yeah.
That was
two of the best Mario Kart players ever.
Yeah. Not to spoil it, but that's kind of what got you into the underground was your Mario Kart performance, because you were in a tournament full of Mario Kart record holders basically and killers. But go ahead and talk about Mario. Sorry, I don't want to steal your thunder. Go ahead and talk about your Mario. Well, I don't know. How do we want to talk about all this? Let's get some damn.
There's no spoilers. Everybody has watched 2017 by now. So yeah, I mean, why don't you walk us through, like, because all right, look, I'm going to tell you right now, if I hadn't met Kyle, like if I hadn't met the two, I'm going to call them the two Mario Kart champions, because they really freaking were. If I hadn't met them in person, I would have had no idea how much better people could be at Mario Kart than me. I'm really, really freaking good at Mario Kart. And watching them get these times and everything, I was just like, okay, this is a totally different level. So I would have been with you. I would have been like, look, I'm good at Mario Kart. I don't need to practice that. I'm going to pick up ARMS. So walk me through what that looked like. So you practiced ARMS. Sure.
Yeah, I practiced ARMS because I went from like not knowing anything about the game, but I was like, okay, it'd probably be a safe bet to buy ARMS and just kind of like get myself acquainted with the game and learn as much as I can. And plus, it's a fighting game, and I really like ARMS anyway, so I'm like, I might as well enjoy it as much as possible. Splatoon was like the one game where it's just like, okay, it's in the bag.
I'm not going to play that.
I'm not going to play that.
Exactly.
And there wasn't many other games that I felt like I really need to practice. With the Underground, it was a complete mystery. I didn't even think they were going to add like super classic games. Like they did exactly what they did in 2015, which is kind of like just add retro games to sort of like just for the Underground portion.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, well, I'm hoping that like my prior history of like playing games as a kid will probably come in handy there, which it did.
Were you probably the oldest serious competitor there?
Yeah.
Define serious competitor.
Just somebody who had a chance of winning the whole thing. Like Asa probably wasn't going to win the whole thing, even though he was good. And Bailey's not going to win, obviously. And
I'll be honest, there was one person that I thought would have had a lot of potential to actually do or go really far in the tournament, and that was 360 Chrism. He was like close to my level, but he's like a really known speedrunner, and he's ridiculously good at his game. And I always have like this idea that speedrunners are just good at whatever game they pick up because they could just be so fast with whatever they play, right? But then, like we had John Numbers versus Cosmo, well, at the time, now known as Narcissa. Narcissa.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, like, yeah, Narcissa's going to take this game, or take the tournament, but John Numbers won. And then I realized that John Numbers was a Smash player, so I'm like, okay, well, yeah, and that makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. And even the person that actually won 2017, which was Thomas G, he was known for being like a really good Smash player as well, so I'm starting to think that there's like this trend of like Smash players that are really, really good usually tend to play a lot of other games, and they're also really good at those too.
It's almost like having all those characters in Smash inspires them to figure out where they came from.
Yeah.
True, yeah. You know, I'll tell
Duck
you,
hunt dog. What the fuck? Yeah.
right? Yeah. Thomas and Kyle, they were at the same location as I was in Torrance in California. And, you know, before going there, I didn't really have an idea of how good I had to be at Mario Kart. And so I picked it up. I'd never played that version. In fact, I hadn't played since probably Double Dash. So it had been a while since I had touched a Mario Kart. So I picked up the Game Boy version, or the DS version, sorry, and I was playing that a bit. And I go there and I see these two, and I'm like, oh my God, these two are just freaking ridiculous at this. So Kyle, Kyle, if you ever watch this, thank you so much for this.
By
He
the way,
put a ghost.
there's 3 Kyles, by the way. So...
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
yeah,
Okay,
there were
so-
3. There were 3.
I think it was Kyle W.
W
Yes, that's
ended up
correct. It
going
was
to
done,
Dallas. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna get there. That's actually where I'm going
Yeah.
with the story. All right.
Sorry,
So,
I ruined
no,
it. Go
no,
ahead.
you're fine. You're fine. So when I was expecting, I knew that one of those two would have to win because their time was like a good 2 to 3 seconds ahead of anybody else. Kyle was nice enough to put a ghost on my DS because I was planning on going. I knew I wasn't going to win that
Really?
one. I needed time to actually practice it. Right. I was about a second and a half off of their times. Okay. So I was like, I can't win this. I realized that. I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to practice this track, and then I'm going to fly to Dallas the next week. So when Kyle didn't win that location because Thomas did, I was talking to his father, to Kyle's father, and he was like, "Yeah, I really want him to go to Dallas next weekend, but he doesn't really want to." And so I'm like, I really want to go to Dallas, and I'm talking to Kyle. I'm like, "Dude, you need to go. You're that good. You can win this
Yeah.
whole thing." And so they ended up going to Dallas, which ended up meaning I didn't go to Dallas. And so, you know, but to this day, I still say that, like, once again, he showed me how much better somebody could be at a Mario Kart. And the two of them were like neck and neck the whole time. It was like Kyle's ahead. Now Thomas is ahead. Now Kyle is ahead. So I loved watching the fact that they both made it into the finals. They both got there. So it actually kind of made it hard because I'm like, well, I know John Numbers personally. I obviously want him to win. But I really like Kyle and Thomas. Like, I have to root for all three of them, whatever. So, you know, that was kind of my experience with 2017 was, you know, it was really awesome to see the two of them get in. So, a little side story. Yeah.
The funny part is, I believe the Seattle winner found out that NWC was going to be more than Mario Kart and declined his invitation.
Yeah.
That's just, I just, what?
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he gave it to second place.
Yeah, Emil. He was second place, I believe. I don't know if I think it was the 13 and over, but I have the list somewhere else of the actual times. But that's just. But I'm just speechless about that. That's crazy. Like, I mean,
I should have gone to Seattle. I should have gotten second at Seattle because he was by far better. I mean, like he wasn't as good as Kyle because obviously Kyle's holding world records and everything, but he was the best up there, and second best was like 2 or 3 seconds behind him, from what I understand.
Wow. Yeah, I had the list somewhere. I should have brought it up before I started this, but it's just and the great thing was that in 2015 it was kind of ambiguous. The official rules said the first 700 people would get a chance to play, and the lines are only about 300 deep. So people started playing a second time, but it wasn't really clear in all the cities that that's what the rule set was. And
that still hurts.
That's how I got in, because I was following along on Twitter and found out I could try again. So I did. But 17, they cleared that up and said, just go back to the back of the line, try again. So people were just running from the back of the Best Buy back out to the line, running
that's what we
all
did.
For a whole 2 days straight, and the times would just keep inching up and up and up. And the drama was way better that way, and I'm glad that they did it that way. But it's those qualifiers are just crazy, and it was a much better show than the 15 qualifiers, which you haven't seen the podcast, but in our city in Chicago, the top score was a piece of paper taped to the cell phone accessory aisle. And it was a table with DSs. There was nothing. And in 17, they actually had a nice Nintendo section with screens where you could play the games, and it was an actual traveling show, which was way cooler than it was in 15. So they learned from that as well. But
Yeah, I'm curious to know now that and I don't know why. You know, I've said this in other episodes. I always forget his name, but the guy that used to do the Treehouse stuff, that Eric, yes, Eric. So Eric was really good about taking the feedback because he met up with some of the old 90 and 94 finalists, and we just kind of gave him feedback on the tournament overall, and we saw most of the changes implemented. But he's gone, you know, so like with him being gone from Nintendo, I don't even know if they're going to do another one. I really hope that they do, but I would love to see them continue to improve the overall tournament, and because I'd love to see more of them. I want to keep competing. I love Nintendo tournaments in general, so I'd love to end up in like a 2021 if that happens, or a 2020 or whatever. So
I want to ask actually, which Eric are you referring to?
Eric Peterson.
Peterson. Mm-hmm.
Because that name does ring a bell.
He left Nintendo right before 2017.
Oh, okay, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah, he was the guy who kind of put together. Well, I mean, and keep in mind for anybody watching this, if this information is incorrect, I apologize. But Eric Peterson saw, I guess it was me, Troy, like a few of us had on our Nintendo World Championship stuff because we sat front row 2015. Anybody that, you know, they gave us all VIP badges and everything else. So he came up to us at a restaurant afterwards and he goes, "Hey, are you guys really finalists from back then?" And we talked to him about it. And he's like, "Look, I want to garner some feedback. I want to understand, you know, what you guys thought of the tournament, what we could have done better." And he spent a good 45 minutes to an hour talking to Trey, Vince, and myself about, you know, what we felt about the tournament. We talked about, of course, we talked about the fact that they didn't even know if they were going to let people play more than once, and just some, you know, like some of the ideas of like running it on multiple weekends so that people can travel and stuff like that. And they started to implement some of that. But with him leaving, I don't know if anything else is going to come of it.
Yeah.
So, by the way, just got the list. Jackson V was the fourth best scorer in the entire country, declined his seat, and Emil got a spot, but he was fifth in the whole country. So that's a pretty.
He was closer than I thought.
Yeah.
What was his time? Does it show it on there?
1:14.536 was Emil's. Jackson was 1:14.121.
Okay.
So,
and then 1:12 for Kyle, right?
Kyle was in Dallas was 1:13.794, which was the best, but that was his second attempt, whereas Ito's was 1:13.926.
Got it.
And he only got the one chance. So if they had gone again, they might have shaved off even more. And Kyle's Los Angeles run was 1:13.978. So lots of facts that nobody gives a damn about, but you know, I'm glad that my friend JD and I, because Nintendo was displaying these on those video boards at the qualifying places, we kept track of all of them and have a database of all the best of the top 40 scores. So
there was one, and maybe you might know this. There was one city where there was a good 2 to 3 second gap between first and second place. Or maybe I'm wrong, and there's a 2 to 3 second gap between the worst city and the best city. It was either one or the other.
Probably because John Numbers
had a 1:15, right?
He was the first week. Where the hell is he? New York. Oh yeah, he finished 24th overall. He had a 1:16.
1:16. Okay. I knew it was something like that. So maybe that's what I'm thinking of. And there wasn't like a huge gap in each city, but more of a gap between cities.
But that's how much the play evolved over 4 weeks. Like they shaved a whole 3 seconds off that record time.
Yeah, everyone was using.
We're sorry we're boring.
No. I actually like hearing this because it's interesting because like there's so much more. Every time we have a conversation about like the Nintendo World Championships 2017 and just like other players, because I got to meet them just like in person, right? And there was also a lot of the stuff that happened backstage, but I don't know about how they came on, like all the players, like how they came on there and like how they were invited. Right, like I only listed just like a handful just on this show already, but like I don't know all of them and what their backstory was. And whenever I even talk to like other people from the championship that came at 2017 with me and we exchange more stories, I'm always learning about like a lot of the stuff that happened behind the scenes. It's like one person's just like, "Oh, I came here and I was hanging out with this person and this happened and I was training for this, but then this happened." You know what I mean? Like it's just like, even though these are like, I don't understand too much of like what happens in Mario Kart, it's still really, really interesting to me just to know like one person got like invited, but then he declined the invitation, and then another person got that spot instead. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's very interesting.
I completely agree. And that's actually a big part of why I love doing this podcast, is because we get to hear stories from people firsthand or sometimes secondhand that are super interesting stories that would have been lost with time otherwise. So that's a big part of why we do this.
I actually do want to share one little story. This I think is
Yeah.
really, really interesting, and it does relate to what we were talking about before with regards to like the age groups. So, every person was allowed to bring a +1. Usually, the older players that were pretty comfortable traveling on their own, they would probably bring like a significant other or or like a family member. I remember Yellow Killer Bee, for example, came with a brother.
She
And
seems
that
like
was
she's
really,
pretty. She's in her like her 30s, just from her looks. I'm guessing.
yeah.
I don't know much about
she
her.
was
But
she was actually
Never-
she's older than. Sorry.
I was going to say, never guess a woman's age by her looks. Are you out of your mind?
We actually did
Edit that
exchange.
out. I'm just kidding.
We actually did exchange ages. I'm not going to tell her age, just to be private and like respectful of that. But she's around the same age as I am, so which is really
Oh.
interesting.
I apologize. She was. I only talked to her for a few moments. I was rooting for her in the.
Oh no, it's okay.
She was
You weren't
also
being rude. You weren't being rude.
She was also in the Mario Maker challenge at E3 this week. So I was rooting her and Abdullah on. And
Yeah.
Wait, what?
they had the invitational for the Mario Maker, where it was basically just celebs. It was only 4 people. You missed all this, Dorian?
I had no idea. I
Yeah,
totally missed that. I was working.
Oh, go watch it. It was so
yeah.
good.
It was very
will.
good. I kind of wish more people kind of gone, because it was only like half an hour and they only had invitees. But Abdullah Smash, who we were just in a panel with him, PasteCat and I, back in Milwaukee. He was on the same panel with us, and
Nice.
he was kind of why I'm not sure exactly why he was there, but he was like a Nintendo influencer. He's sort of semi-official, and they invited him in, and he kicked ass and he won. So now he's really officially part of the club. So
who was in it?
Yellow Killer Bee, Abdullah Smash, 2 others.
And the completionist.
Oh, Gerard was in there. Nice.
Yep.
Oh, I'm gonna kill him for not telling me now.
And the last person was, I don't know, it was a YouTuber. I don't really know this person.
I'll look it up real quick. Invitational, but
Anyways, I'll go back to what I was saying before. It's like everybody was allowed to bring a +1. And but the thing is that when the younger players came, they obviously, their +1 would obviously be a parent, right? And the parents were allowed to like go with them everywhere except for during the tournament. We didn't have any of the parents backstage. It was just us, the competitors, and of course the staff. And I remember here's a funny thing that happened is that backstage, like, how was the temperature? You were sitting out in the audience. How was the temperature?
Dragon Feeney, by the way, is the last.
Okay.
Dragon Feeney, that's the one.
The
Chris,
God fucking sorry for the French. It's God fucking awful that day. It was October, but I took
inside the venue.
Inside the venue, it was okay. It was a little
2015?
17.
Oh, got it.
In the Manhattan Center, which interestingly, since Bailey was there, the Manhattan Center is the same building where they held the first WWE Raw episode back in the 90s. So everything is just a big cycle of nostalgia and waves. But
the reason I ask is
it was very hot outside that day, and it was air conditioned inside, but it was still a little muggy. So it was uncomfortable, and the lights didn't help. And you guys are on stage, and probably was even worse. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Actually, no, not at all. Backstage, that's where all the main AC units were, and it was really, really cold backstage, like unbearably cold. Now, since we were obviously warm, right? We had like the sweater and the shirt, and you know what I mean. But like, some of us were dressed like for the outside weather, which is already really warm, and like, everybody was like super nervous, but we were also like chattering because it was just like super cold backstage, right?
Yeah.
So I had my sweater, right? Like my my NWC hoodie. And I remember the one kid that I actually became super close friends with. His name was Mark. I call him Marky. I think that's his name on Splatoon. But anyways, he wasn't backstage with his mom, I believe it, and he was like feeling super nervous, and like he think he was like one of the youngest gamers there, and
From
I felt
San
really bad for him.
Francisco.
Yeah, there you go. So I felt really bad for him because it's like he's never been exposed. A kid like him has never been exposed to like an intense level of competition, let alone any competition before, right? He was just a kid that was really good at Mario Kart, right? But like to transition from being really good at Mario Kart to suddenly being on TV is like, putting a
By
minnow from like
himself.
a pond into like an ocean full of like piranhas, right? Um, but anyways, so like he was by himself, and I remember like when I was looking around, I was kind of like just taking a look at the competition and just talking with everyone and just being really buddy buddy. But like I noticed he was sitting around alone in a corner, and I came up to him and he was like just chattering because it was cold, but like he didn't have his sweater and he also looked really nervous. So I came up to him and I actually, this is like kind of my moment of like reaching out, I guess. I went up to him and I said, "Hey, you feeling okay? Like, are you all right?" And he's just like, "I'm just really cold." But like I can also tell like he was really nervous. So like I took off my sweater, I like gave it to him, and I'm like, "Tell me about your favorite games. Do you play Splatoon? Like I play a lot of Splatoon. You like Splatoon?" And he's like, "Yeah, I really like Splatoon." So we just started bonding over like Splatoon and just talking about Nintendo games. And the main reason I did that is because like just I know that when you're really uh stressed out from like competition stuff like that, the best thing to do is just take your mind off of it, start talking, just get your like, you know what I mean, like
Very true.
yeah, so like I'm sure that situation helped him out a lot because like when we were on stage, like he started feeling a lot better and more confident about himself. But like
And
uh
go ahead, finish before I say my thing. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry. Again.
no, it's okay. I'm just like that experience kind of like helped me understand just how important it is like for that whole bridging the gap between like the different age groups. And I just like, even if like this person was like super young, like I was still kind of able to relate with them on like a really really fundamental thing like gaming. And I was just literally talking about Splatoon and like other things, but it was a really fun moment.
Marco and Santiago were the
Mhm.
longest lasting survivors in the 12 and under group. They both made it to round 4.
Nice.
Yep.
So there you go. That's all on you. Congratulate yourself for calming the beefman and getting in and doing it. That's a really cool story. I wonder back in 90, did the 12 and unders, did their plus ones accompany them? I'm wondering just how I wonder how that worked, because we hear all the stories about how the parents back in 1990 were responsible for letting Nintendo letting the participants keep the cartridges.
Yeah.
You because you know about the cartridge, right? The 1990 cartridge, like the holy grail of Nintendo collecting, right?
Yeah.
That was originally not even going to be given to the participants. It was the parents who were there fighting for their kids. Like, hey, give them a cartridge. This is give them a cartridge, and because of their work,
Yeah.
it became a thing. So, but I'm just wondering how. And like you said, they're with their plus one all weekend, and then all of a sudden, at the most important part of their weekend, then they're all by themselves. So,
I mean, even the middle age group. I mean, they were. I mean, you have to think everyone in the middle age group for 90 also had their parents there, and so it was pretty much 18 and up probably had their own thing going on, but everybody else. I mean, you're talking 60 of the 90 competitors would have had to have some kind of parental figure.
Yeah.
Well, you want to? I guess we'll finally get into the competition itself. So you do the trilogy of games, and so you practiced. You picked up arms. You did not pick. You had Breath of the Wild because your plus one had it. You picked up arms. So you did okay. And so were you were practicing shield surfing? Is that what you're doing with your copy? What were you practicing?
Yeah, I was practicing the shield surfing specifically because I'm like, we did the rehearsal and I wasn't anywhere near good. Like I didn't know anything about shield surfing. So I started looking up like speed runs, and thank goodness I had to attribute my success in the shield surfing to one of my best friends actually. He was my teammate on 2 of my competitive Splatoon teams.
Nice.
And I'm okay. He's like always like my intel. He's like the Otacon to Snake, you know what I mean? So like I literally reached out to him that night, and I was just kind of like, His name is Wisdom, or his tag, he goes by Wisdom, Wisdom and Courage, but I call him Wisdom. So I'm like, Wisdom, I need details on shield surfing. I don't know what to do for this. So he like pulls up an entire list of like speed runs and like, he's like, this is the best path you should take and stuff like that. And I was just like looking over all the information, and I just started practicing it for like the next few hours. And I'm like, okay, I think I got this. And then as soon as I was able to come up like second in the shield surfing, you know, after the competition was over, I was just like, Wisdom, that's all you. That's all you.
You were second out of 24, so you're because it was a trilogy, and you basically won. Are you feeling pretty good and safe at this point? You're like, okay, I can try to relax a bit. And what's the mentality right after that part? Are you still pretty nervous, or what are you thinking?
I was pretty nervous because here's the thing. I felt bad for the younger ones because it's like, even though I'm no stranger to being up on stage and like competing on live streams or like in front of a bunch of people who are watching what I'm doing, that still left me pretty nervous. Like normally I'm pretty calm and collected about these kind of things, but like the second I was on stage and it's like the idea of, oh, there are people watching me on TV and whatever, like I was just like, oh my goodness, okay, this is real. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Right? Just panic mode.
How did tournament experience is everything. It really is.
Was standing up an issue too, or do you normally play Splatoon tournaments sitting down?
I'm actually okay in a lot of weird positions, so standing up was not really a big deal for me. Like even when I'm playing Smash or Splatoon, I'm always like sitting cross-legged in my chair, which is kind of really weird, but that's just how I am, I guess.
I run a Dr. Mario tournament in Pittsburgh, and like I have everybody stand up because in NWC we stood up. So I say if John Numbers and can win a world championship on his feet, so can you, goddammit. So stay on your feet.
Yeah, no, I think that's great.
And everybody's like, fighting tournament people sit down, and our Tetris people sit down. It's like, stand up, come
Whatever,
on,
stand up.
Yeah, thank you. But it's much you know, it just looks weird to sit down when you're doing that. It makes it look like poker for some reason. I don't. It just seems like it's standing. Yeah. Anyway, stupid left field question. All right, so the next game was the home run, the sandbag, hitting the home run, and you're a good Smash player, so you were pretty confident when that came up. And you got what, 2 tries? How'd that work?
Yeah, everybody got 2 tries, and they basically take your best score from that.
Yeah.
I didn't get the best on that one. I think I placed 7th or 8th or somewhere around there. 6th. Oh, okay.
I've got a score sheet up, dude. You're gonna get.
So who won? Who won that?
That one, if I had to guess, I think that was Asa Butterfield.
Asa.
Yeah, his Roy is absolutely nuts.
Okay, so he was meta then. All right, I don't remember who used what back then. So, how many people actually used the meta?
So here's the thing: when we were doing rehearsals, nobody used the meta. Nobody used the meta. After like the next day, I would assume that everybody had an ample amount of time to practice overnight. So like the ones that did practice, you can tell because they either went Ganondorf or Roy, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And once again, this was kind of like my thing of like doing a little bit of background research. I even asked Wisdom too. I'm like, I guess Roy or Ganondorf seem to be like the proper pick here, and he's just like, yeah, either one of those two will be better. Ganondorf is a safer pick. Roy, if you're feeling a little bit more crazier and you think you confidently can hit all the things before you can actually do the final launch, you'll get further. It's just a bit harder. So I was just like, you know what, let's go all out. I picked Roy and I went for that. That was fine. And then the last one was of course the Dig or Not, which still nobody had done to that point. So it was still, you can tell, like if you rewatch the entire thing, everybody was struggling a lot, and I managed to make it in at the last second.
What was the rules? It was like you had 5 minutes total, and if you finish it under 3, you got first place, and if you finish under 5, you got partial credit.
Yeah,
because I have
points if you get it under 3 minutes, and you get half of those points if you make it in at all.
So that was you. You were yeah. And then how many people didn't finish?
I was pretty confident after that first one because it's like I already made it in. I got second on the shield surfing, and then I got a decent, I think 6th in the home run contest. I'm like, yeah, I made it through.
Five people did not finish. So that's the 5. Like, I was kind of annoyed because I knew that they were sent the game, and in 15 they didn't tell us jack squat other than like a little thing. So it's like they're giving you the entire game in a system. So you should have but okay.
How long had Metroid been out by that point?
I don't think it's been released yet. They got an
That's
advanced
what I
copy.
was.
It hadn't released.
So it was an
Yep.
advanced copy. Okay, got
Yep.
it.
Did
So
you have to sign
basically,
like about 5 billion NDAs?
that's
Yeah.
a good question.
Oh yeah.
They made us sign a big NDA thing because they did let us practice blast ball before the competition for like 15 minutes. And we weren't allowed to like have any video cameras, no cell phones for freaking horrible ass blast ball. So that's my funny
Hey,
little
now
story.
that's like the greatest game ever. What are you
That's
talking
the,
about?
that's the simplest Metroid Rocket League ripoff ever. So at that point you were 7th overall for the first 3 games, and then the bottom 8 got kicked to the underground, and 2 people in the underground got to stay in the underground. So
yeah.
You're backstage, like, so what's because in 15 they had us all out on stage the entire time. You went backstage at the end and you were out. So I can imagine with 24 people, what I mean, are you guys encouraging the guys who are going to the underground? Like, what's when they announced that it's going to be a balloon fight? What's the are you like giving them like good luck, guys, or what's
Yeah.
that reaction?
There were like tables backstage, so and there was like a lot of like food that they also served us, but I hadn't had anything that entire evening. And thank goodness I didn't, because I was like so nervous, and I'll get to a funny story in a second. But I hadn't eaten anything. But I was just kind of like chilling out in the backstage area, and just kind of like watching the things from the monitors, because we had like our own little private monitors just to sort of watch what was going on the front. And I was watching Balloon Fight and seeing how it was all going on. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So they're replaying one of the games from the 2015, right?
Yep.
So we were watching, and we also wished them good luck. And some people were unfortunately eliminated, but then they called us up again to do round 2, which was a different game, which was Super Smash Brothers, the 8-player battle.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was interesting because it's like I've already felt really comfortable playing Smash for the number of years that I have. So, and there was 2 things that also kind of presented a bit of a challenge. Is the fact that it's 8-player Smash, which is not really normally a bad thing, but the thing is, I'm a Peach main, and she's very light. So if I get bopped around maybe a few times, and then suddenly somebody comes out there and just smashes me, I'm out, and that's it, right?
So how do you feel about the items being on for this? Were you one of those people like items on, or are you like
Party mode?
I roll with it, man. To me, items just mean that like if I'm good with my items, I just make use of what's available to me, right? Like that's the rule set. I'm gonna be okay with it.
Good answer.
Yeah. Here, okay. So
let me go ahead and give the role of who's in your group. So you have Yellow Killer B, Tuberon, who wasn't he the San Diego Smash champ?
Yep.
So
that's
there's
exactly
a
what I was
killer
saying.
there. Yourself, 360, Marco, Abe, Wyatt A, aka Saw Step. I don't. It's nobody has real names in these things. It's all like the first name, last initial. Jeff, who is my boy from Chicago, and that was okay. So and then you finished with 2 points, which puts you in 2nd place.
Nice.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like I said, I was playing Peach, and she's very easy to get knocked out. And the second roadblock was the fact that I already knew that Tuberon was in there, and he was the San Diego Smash champion. So if you look at that match carefully, half of that match was basically me and Tuberon just facing off. We were off on the right hand side of the screen. We were fighting for like half the game. Meanwhile, everybody else was just off doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And because Tuberon knew that I was a Smash player, so he targeted me because like he wanted to get me out of the picture, and I targeted him because like I can't let him win, right? But the thing is that the difference is that I played a mid-tier character, and he played a character that was like considered super high tier, and obviously he's really good. Tuberon's really good, and the fact that he plays a character that can easily score kills in an 8-player setting just made it so much easier for him, right?
And this is coming off his win in the first round, so he's like the goddamn superstar right now. And he's under 12, right? Wasn't he at the time?
I think so. I'm not sure. He was around that age. Yeah, he's very good. So, it's funny because like,
go ahead.
after that, after the Nintendo World Championships, I think like we still maintain like a healthy contact with each other. We do, to this day we still spar and Smash, so it's pretty
I was
cool.
going to ask about that too. So got that question out of the way. So it's important.
Yeah. But yeah, like I was actually surprised that I still made it to second because I was like the last few minutes where I actually started getting kills because I was getting bopped around a lot, and just as I predicted, I should have gone with a safer pick, but I'm such a Peach main that like I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna stick through it, and people are gonna know.
You literally go to the dance with the girl you brought. You can't change your strategy at the last minute. That's disastrous.
That's a failing idea. Absolutely.
It's also the community that knows me in Smash and in Splatoon. They know that I'm a huge Peach purist. So like if they were to see me on stage playing something completely different, they'd probably be like, "What the heck are you doing? That's not Dan. That's not Dan."
Yeah, you don't know how many fighting game tournaments we watch where you see somebody switch from their main and you're just like, they're in his head, and so then you switch off of your main because you're thinking, well, this is a better matchup, but that's not your main. And yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. I think that going Peach was the safe route. But let me ask this: considering the way that the scoring was working, I'm kind of surprised that one of the two of you didn't try to just score points against some of the players that didn't really know Smash. Was that not the way that the scoring worked? Because honestly, I don't remember.
It was it 1 round or 2?
It was 1 round.
Okay.
See, the thing is that if you die or you get a stock taken from you, then it's time mode, right? So like you get a -1, right? But if you get a kill, you get a +1. My strategy was if I don't let him get any kills against everyone else, he doesn't win. But if
so you kept him busy.
Yeah, so I kept him busy, and likewise, I think that was his strategy too. He kept me busy because I can easily do the same thing that he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
He had 7 though, so he was the dominant player, and you and Wyatt had 2 each. Everybody else had 0 or less. So you were the only people making any offense at all, honestly. Going right back to Balloon Fight real quick. Had you been stuck there, had you played Balloon Fight before, and would you have done okay?
I would have done okay because Balloon Fight was also a game that I grew up with. I love Balloon Fight.
Yes. Okay.
I love the NES classics: Ice Climber, Balloon Fight, Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3, Punch Out, all that stuff. I'm very well versed in it. If somebody had thrown Balloon Fight in my direction, I would have been like, "Bring it."
That's how I felt when I watched Packy, and I'm just wanted to cry because I'm like, how do you not know Balloon Fight? Such a classic.
They were playing on Wii U's also, and if you know anything about Virtual Console on the Wii U, the lag is atrocious. And a game like Balloon Fight, that's killer. You just have to take the safe route. But
so, quick side question: were they playing on the pad, or were they having to play on a TV?
They were playing on the pad. Okay. And I think the pad doesn't have as much lag as the TV.
That's correct. The pad.
That's why it won Zelda.
The greatest, yeah. That is the greatest. Like that pad, I don't know how they did it. Kudos to Nintendo, but man, that's the only way you can really play Mario Maker unless you have a really fast monitor, like a gaming monitor for that. So it's good stuff.
Okay, so since you were Group 1 of Smash, you're going backstage. Now it's a little less crowded because 6 people have been kicked out, and you're waiting for the second round to go, which John Numbers is in that second group. So you dodged a bullet. I mean, you had Tuber on one group, but Numbers dominates his with 12.
He was using Shulk, I believe, right?
Yeah. And second place was Ito, who's also a Smash player with 5. So
player. Yeah, he's a Smash player too.
You can, and I'm in the crowd. I'm rooting for my boy, but John, and also I'm rooting for Jeff, who won Chicago, because I got to meet him, and that was. I'm rooting for everybody. I'm not like booing anybody, but I'm hoping John becomes the legend and pulls off the repeat. So, but you're safe there, but you've got like a 5-minute match in an underground. So, like mentally, are you just trying to enjoy it, or because watching a Smash match is kind of boring unless you're trying to? I don't know. For me, it's not exciting to watch that. So.
After round 1, I was comfortable. After round 2, I was stressing the heck out, and here's why. Because here's the thing: there were 12 players left, I think, going into round 3. I was hoping hoping we were gonna play Splatoon 2. And I was hoping that it wasn't Mario Kart because I'm like, I'm clearly a lot better at one of the games than the other.
And
it was Mario Kart.
yeah, well, I have to say that 12 people, that's how many players Mario Kart supports.
Yeah, so I'm just
kind of doomed.
My logic was saying, oh, it's gonna be Mario Kart, but I'm just like, no, but it could be Splatoon.
Yeah.
Probably.
Splatoon,
Hopefully.
please. Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't. So I'm like,
so
oh,
the round,
right.
yeah. The round 2 underground is where shit gets wacky, and I'm thinking this is the greatest thing that they've ever done. When they announced Birds and Beans as the underground game for round 2, and I'm saying WTF, and then I see it's like, oh, it's that Proyo game from WarioWare, but like they don't call it that anymore. But like, what? And then like the first bullet point is like, you did not expect this. They just trolled the hell out of everybody, and it was amazing that was the underground game. Had you ever played that or even seen it or knew what the hell it was?
No, but I will tell you this. After the championship was over, I went home and I don't think I've ever bought in a game as quickly as I ever have.
That's amazing.
Shop. Yes. I bought Bird and Beans, and I even to this day, even on this 2DS that I got from the championship, I am hooked on this game. It is absolutely so like a joy to play, and I recommend anyone gets it. It's like $2. It's like it's really cheap. But yeah,
where's my Switch version?
Yeah, it was on the original WarioWare, so I mean, maybe they'll bring that back.
Hopefully,
so.
yeah.
But my good friend Emil got out of that underground, and Yellow Killer Bee also passed that underground as well. And that was interesting because Emil by that point had passed 2 undergrounds after the first game. So
she's a rock star, or Emil is,
Emil, So I think that ties. I think by that point he set the record for most undergrounds beaten, because usually people don't survive an underground more than longer than 2 rounds.
And I do like how they changed it to 2 people surviving as opposed to 1. So it
was 1 person in 2015?
Yeah. Only 1.
What?
Yep.
No way.
Yep. Oh, I got to sit on the Ottoman of Doom for my underground win. So I was sitting on stage all by myself, like, this is kind of cool.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Only 1. Yeah. It was brutal. They really eased it up for you guys, which was good, honestly, because if you had one person who dominates, but you have other people who don't, then it gives you it. I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we go to Mario Kart, and they make you run 2 races or 3?
It was 2 races.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yes.
It was Mount Wario, and the other one was
50cc Mount Wario, which is they totally screwed everybody up. Yeah,
CC, who plays that?
But it was that so good, because you thought you would think they're going to go to 200 because that's the professional one. But if you go to 50, that just that's like taking a professional and putting like a race car driver on a bicycle track. It just. But so let's see. What did you do here? PasteCat got
not very good.
11th place. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And but so what do you just did you add any, because items are on? Did you get a blue shell? Were you always behind the entire race?
I was always behind the entire race, and I wasn't getting any items that were helping. So I was just kind of like, shoot, this is not good. But the next race is there, and if I do well in that next race, maybe I can actually get up. And then they announced that it's going to be taking place in 200cc, and then I was just like, well, nope, not going to happen.
Yeah.
So they finished 9th on the second race, for a total of 6 points, and then what was the cutoff? 7 was. You were 1 point behind.
Oh wow!
And that 1 point would have made all the difference, and I'll explain after when we've gone through this.
I think I know why.
Yeah. I brought it up a little bit earlier, I think, before we started recording this, and the what if scenario, but I'll explain that after. But anyways, 1 point away.
3 of you tie with 6 points, and then 1 person had 5 points. So if they're gonna use ranks, which is what I think you're gonna talk about, like I don't even know how they're gonna rank the 3 of you if you all have the same point total. But so you 4 go to the underground, joining the other 2 from the previous underground for Donkey Kong Country Returns. and we've done.
Oh boy!
And it was a
boy.
minecart level, so unlike say Mario Maker, when you can kind of like stop and assess what you're supposed to do, you're always moving. It's an endless runner style of a stage. So, you basically just have to memorize, and it was unlimited lives. And did anybody finish before the time limit? I'm trying to.
Yes, it was 360 Chrism that managed to actually finish it. But he's a speedrunner, so it's kind of like he knows what he's doing in these kind of situations. He can adapt very quickly.
Memorizes quickly.
Yeah.
Before I just want to bring up this little funny point that I'm sure it'll amuse some people, and I've constantly brought it up to a lot of my friends. Whenever the game reveal is happening, we're already on stage. They tell us to go on stage, as the announcer's talking,
Right.
or the commentators are talking, and then once we're on stage and they give them the okay, it's like, okay, here's the next game.
And then they want to see your facial reactions.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So remember how I was at that mixer and I told you that I got to play Donkey Kong Country Returns on the
Right.
3DS for like a total of like 20 seconds and then I died? Have you guys ever seen a deer in headlights? Because as soon as I saw Donkey Kong Country Returns, my pupils just kind of like went tiny, and
Wow.
I think I said, "Help me," like really quietly. I was just like, "No, I'm dying here. This Donkey Kong is going to be my grave." I'm like,
Right.
okay, you know what? Fine, bring it on. Let's see what happens. 6 minutes. I can probably try to adapt as best as I can, and
So
it was scary because they put on these headsets on you, and you have no idea what's going on around you. You don't know the progress of the other players.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know where they're at, who's winning, who's losing. You don't know anything. You're basically going on what you see in front of you, and the headset that we had was pretty good at blocking out all the sounds. So all we heard was just like the floor shaking uncontrollably whenever people were like cheering, or you know what I mean, like when something really hype was going on the big screen. And also just the pressure of knowing that there's like 2 million plus around the world that are like watching you this very second and judging you on your every move. So I'm just like, this is not going to go well.
So there was a 6-minute time limit.
Yeah, it was 6
So,
minutes.
but it was supposed to be the first two people to finish the stage.
Yeah.
Or go on. So 360 finishes within the time limit, and then the rest of you hadn't finished yet. So they did some sort of overtime system. What was it exactly? How did that work? Like the longest to survive or something like that? Or
So I remember the ref tapping me on the shoulder, and I was scared because I was just like, all right, I'm done. Apparently 2 people, Cliff, must have finished it. So I take off my headset, and the creepiest thing happens. Like the ref just goes over my shoulder and just says, "Sudden death." And I'm just like, what is that supposed? What? What?
you're
So
still alive, but that's even worse.
No, okay, so like I was hearing the commentators what they were talking about, and it's like, all right, Jordan Kent was going on about like 6 minutes, sudden death, and the first player to make basically stay alive, 1 life. I'm like, okay, cool, 1 life, 6 minutes,
Wow.
we're gonna do it. So by that point, I was already like completely a wreck. I was a mess. I was super nervous. People were watching. People were judging. The crowd is going crazy. I need to win this game. That's all I had to focus on. So like I just said, all right, forget the crowd, forget the TV, forget the other players. Just focus on your game. And I just suddenly entered like this new level of zen
Yes.
where I just
yes.
like this is like Ultra
You've-
Instinct Goku level of gaming, right?
You've seen this level like how many times over 6 minutes, and then all of a sudden all the pieces just lock into perfectly, right? Is that
Exactly. Yes. Yes. That's exactly it. So I entered this new zen, and I think slowly but surely, I didn't even focus on like the crowd was going crazy, and I imagine it was probably because people were like, obviously, they lost their one opportunity. Asa Butterfield was the first one to lose his life, I think. Then he was joined by Yellow Killer Bee.
Asa was first out, then Saw Step was 5th.
Yeah.
Then Yellow Killer Bee 4th. So you're down to the final 3, which is
Emil, and
Emil, yourself. Yep, just you two. That's right.
And you needed 2 to get out, right?
Right. So the first place had already won. So we're down
Yeah.
to we're just got that one spot left, and it was a survival. Whoever dies is out.
Wow.
Yeah, it was between Emil and myself, and I didn't even focus on it. I was just playing the game as best as I could, and like I was just playing as normally, just focusing on my game, and then suddenly the ref taps me on the shoulder again, and I'm like, it took me a while to register that because I was like really in the game, and then he taps me on the shoulder again, and I take off my headset. I'm like, what's going on? Is something wrong? Like, did I do something wrong? Am I disqualified? And he's like, no, stop playing, you won, stop playing. And then
Wow.
I was so happy. I popped off on stage. That was actually on the broadcast.
I remember that.
And then they told us to go backstage. Well, I hugged Yellow Killer Bee, and I was like, it's giving my sigh of relief. And then they told us all to go backstage. And then immediately when I went backstage, all the nerves of everything that I had experienced prior just came back to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was gonna be sick. I had to like look for the nearest wastebasket because I was just like, guys, clear away. I'm gonna be sick. I'm like super nervous. I didn't get sick.
This
but
is
I
your
felt like
moment of glory.
I know, but like this was
sick.
backstage. I'm just kind of like, just give me a moment, just give me some air. That was really stressful. I was fine, but I was really, really tired. So I got to sit down, and they had announced the next game, which is actually Splatoon.
Oh no.
And then I was just like, all right, I don't get to play Splatoon, but it's fine. At least I'm still alive here, right? I was really happy though, because like I was sitting backstage with the Nintendo staff, and I think there was one staff that hadn't even seen the game. And I was explaining, like, just taking my time, just explaining Splatoon and just kind of trying to unwind from the previous round. So I was just talking about like, okay, this is tower control. The objective of the game is to get on the tower, move it to the opposing enemy goal. And I was just like, I wasn't even like judging, right? Like I was just watching them play. I'm like, okay, cool. I don't think any of them are like really super fantastic at Splatoon. But I clearly knew, like I was watching the game. I'm like, yeah, if I was there, I probably would have easily survived that round because just judging on their gameplay. Don't get me wrong. John Numbers, Thomas G, I think Cole was on the winning team as well. Jeff. And I think Jeff, they were on the same team. They did fantastic, but
well, they nearly blew it. The 4 kids. That's the big controversy was, I guess it went 1, 3, 5, 7, and then 2, 6, 8.
2, 6, 8. Yeah.
But it ended up being the 4 players, like the 4 kids went up against the 4 people in the 13 and over group, and
I remember that. Yeah.
And when we saw it when we were in the crowd, I'm like, those kids are gonna get slaughtered. I feel so bad for them, but they won the second game. It was 20-21. So like, holy crap, they're in it again. And then the third game, it went to overtime, but overtime is such a it's not really what it sounds like. I mean, they had possession at the end, but they were still like 8 points behind. There was really not much of a chance for them, but nobody took it all the way to the goal. So obviously they were fighting and tooth and nail, and it was damn fun to watch, and I was proud of them. I don't know how you felt at that thing, and then we'll talk about what happens next, but
yeah,
that was my impression sitting in the third row there. But like, just I wanted to give him a standing ovation and just like give him a big group hug, just for damn guys, like you shouldn't have even had to do that. But yeah, so
no, they did really well. I guess this would be a good time to bring it up because like I mentioned this previously about the what if scenario, because if I had gotten that one extra point in Mario Kart and made it to the next round, I would have gotten that 1 point, I would have been seated low, right? So it would have been in that 2, 4, 6, 8 group with the younger ones.
Yeah.
And so what was that analogy that you used earlier?
So imagine this. Imagine you have a football game, right?
Yep.
Let's say you have a college team on one side. So they're good. They're getting the scholarship. They were great in high school. They're playing major college football. Versus a high school team, that'd be a blowout. But the high school team has an NFL quarterback.
Right. Yeah.
Who wins?
And that's actually funny because when we were backstage and I think it was prior to the Smash round, John actually said that we might end up playing Splatoon as well because there was 2 groups of 8, right? Yeah. So that could have been 4 teams right there. And since the second game in the Nintendo World Championships 2015 was actually the first Splatoon, so he was just like, it might be Splatoon, right? And I know that he was keeping an eye on me too. He's just kind of like, I don't want to be. I think John was like, I hope we're on the same team together.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now, shooters, you can carry. You can carry an entire team, no problem. You know, you let them do their thing, and you're just making sure that there's no progress made by the other team. You could walk right through any team that they put up against you. So basically, whoever had you on the team for Splatoon was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I look at it. I mean,
it would have been fascinating. That's the whole thing. Yeah.
I will say I'm sad that I never played Splatoon. Sorry, I never played Splatoon. I will play it if it comes out for Switch. But just knowing what I know about shooters in general, it's out for Switch.
Splatoon 2.
It's out for the Switch.
It's a launch game.
2.
Oh, that's silly of me not to have picked it up then. I guess I'll pick it up and try it. But basically, knowing what I know about shooters, it's just like. That is a game where you can carry an entire team just by stopping the other team entirely. If you just went snipe mode and just took out everybody, there's just no way could they have survived that. So,
yeah,
what could have been?
One Splatoon question. So the last matchup is next weekend. I forget what they call them. Are you going to be chaos or order?
Wait, last matchup?
The last what do they call those? You know, peanut butter versus jelly and cats versus dogs, or what do they call those matchups?
Oh yeah, Chaos versus Order. Oh
yes.
yeah, the Splatfest. Yeah,
Splatfest. Thank you.
The Splatfest are basically like little mini events where they pit two things or two ideas versus each other. Like it could be like, are you team cat or team dog, or are you team hamburger or team pizza, right? And this one, the last one, which is meant to be like the finale to Splatoon 2, is meant to be, are you team chaos or are you team order? And the reason why this is so significant is because back in Splatoon 1, the final Splatfest was team, like the two mascots, which are Callie and Marie.
Marie, yeah.
Are you either team Callie or team Marie? And that, the winner of that one, which was team Marie, actually it basically it influenced the story mode in Splatoon 2, right? Marie was the winner, and it basically went off of that. So it's kind of interesting. So now that we have Team Chaos versus Team Order, a lot of like people are choosing and thinking like, obviously this is going to make a difference if there is a Splatoon 3 in the future, which I imagine there probably will be because it's a good game and it did really, really well for Nintendo. But anyways, I'm Team Order.
Interesting. I just wonder, like if it were my generation in the 90s, everybody would have picked freaking Chaos. Yeah, because it's Mortal Kombat time and everybody was edgy and Dan Cortez and Surge being, squirted at you from a fire hose. But nowadays I wonder how many kids would pick Order. It's an interesting. I'll stand on the sidelines and see what happens. That's interesting that you would say that, and I wonder.
I think Team Chaos
is going to win. Oh, really?
Yeah, I think Team Chaos is going to win, but I always stick with
Not if you have anything to. You'll be the NFL quarterback trying to lead the high school team against.
Well, I'll try. You can actually see like based on Twitter and on the Splatoon app, like who on your friends list I actually joined, and I have like all the really good players on my friends list from like different competitive teams and like sponsored teams and stuff like that. Right. And some of them actually have gone Team Chaos. I'm just like, I don't want to run into these people. They destroy anyone.
Nice. I'll pick up Splatoon 3. There we go.
There you go. Yeah. Anyways, that was the Splatoon round. And then, which was round 4, and then we went into round 4 Underground.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and that's also an interesting story because like I'd gone from like being super tired, sitting at the table like watching the Splatoon games, and then they call me up. It's like, all right, people who are in for round 4 Undergrounds, please get ready to go on stage. So I go in the ready line, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I did well. I'm really tired. This is already like hours into the Nintendo World Championships.
A long competition.
And the Donkey Kong Country minecart thing really
drained you. Yeah.
Think 6 minutes, right? Just going back to a boxing round is 3 minutes, and that's an eternity. You're going twice a boxing round, and the level of concentration and no breaks and just go and go and go, and then to have an overtime on top of that, you've got to be spent at this point. And I'm just like, I'm super proud of that, man. That's amazing. But let's go on to the next surprise. Okay.
Yeah, so I go on stage, and it's like Underground stage 4, and I'm like, all right, throw it at me. This is gonna be something else I'm not really all that great at, so I wonder what it is. And then suddenly I hear Tetris blocks, and it's like a second wind came in me, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, let's go. Tetris. And I was so happy, and yeah, I got to play Tetris on the Nintendo World Championships. That was, I don't think I can ask for anything more than that. It was like one of the most iconic games, and I did really well at it, so I'm pretty happy with that.
You won handily. Like I think we talked about it right on the stream. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like just you awesome, dude. You got Jordan Kent to say boom Tetris, which made me feel nice and warm. And when they did the game reveal and they showed that video, I'm like pointing at my 1990 Nintendo World Championship hat. So I got to represent the old guys there and linked everything together. So I felt like I was an important thing for 5 seconds. And you killed it, and those poor kids who just got the tar slammed out of them in Splatoon had to endure hardcore Game Boy Tetris at level 10, and nobody was up to the challenge. I wish they would have posted the actual scores. I only have the places, but you were first place. You had 3 Tetrises, so you're probably it was level 0 scoring, so you're only getting 1,200 a Tetris, so you're probably only about 5,000 points. But
I know Kyle W. also, he was the other person that pulled out of the underground with me, and he also got a Tetris as well.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how many Tetris he had, but he got 1, and he did pretty well. He seemed like pretty calm and collected after that. I would assume that he's probably played Tetris a lot.
And it was that weird system where you get like 5 minutes, and if your game's over, you can restart. I'm not a fan of that particular thing. Yeah, but it is what it is. I'm more of the get one chance, and if you blow it early, you can get one replay. I don't know, but that's a weird format when you're trying to keep track of scores, and they don't even like tell us what the scores are at the end. They just say what the places are.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, you destroy it, and I mean, like, are you? Did you feel bad for those kids, or are you like, I got another win, I'm going to take this goddamn thing? Like, what are you feeling at this point?
No, actually, so I felt like I played really badly, to be honest, after that round was over. And then I was just like, oh, okay, I for sure lost. And then they gave us the scores. I'm like, I'm first? Okay, well, cool. I was confused more than anything. And then even like going backstage after that, I was still confused. I'm like, okay, I'm still in this. And then I didn't realize that I made it to the final underground. So that was pretty good. I think at that point I'd been pretty happy with myself.
Were the eliminated players taken to another area?
Yeah, they were taken to the back, like to the complete backstage where all the plus ones and the parents and everybody were waiting. And whenever anybody's eliminated, they go back there and they get to watch everything backstage from like the big screen, and they watch. It's like a huge viewing party with lots of food and awesome stuff. Yeah, and
we didn't even get food backstage, but our year sucked. But but I'm going back to your regular backstage area. When you first start, there's 24 people back there. So now there's like 5 or 6. So it's just, I'm sure it's super cold, and it's just more lonelier and lonelier, and you're still in it. I mean, what are you sizing everybody up? I mean, what do you think are the odds you're going to take the whole thing at this point?
It's weird. Whenever I go into any competition, and this is no exception too, any competition, I never size anyone up, to be honest. I'm always like, whenever I see an opponent or a group of opponents, I'm just kind of like, okay, they're there to play. I'm here to do my own thing, and just whatever happens, right? I don't try to like kind of guess what they're gonna do beforehand. John was definitely that kind of person. He's like trying to plan everything out and calculate everything out in his head before everything happened. And you know what? Yeah. Kudos to him. It actually, like, I do think it does work, because like obviously he was able to make it all the way to like the very. Did he stay on the winner? Yeah, he did stay on the winner's side. Mm-hmm. He won arms.
He never been in an underground. Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah. He's never seen the underground before. So in both of those Nintendo World Championships.
Correct.
So so we played Tetris, and then the next round was of course ARMS.
You bought that game for nothing.
Yeah, I know. That's my first thought. But like, you know what? It was fine. I got to play ARMS, and it's a great game, and I'm still playing it to this day too. Like, it's just fun to play. I felt bad for Zerk, because he I remember he told me something really funny. He says okay, so Zerk plays nothing but fighting games, or like competitive games where you have to fight other people. And prior to the rehearsal, he said, and I quote, "I hope I don't have to do any single player games." What was round one? A single player game.
Yeah.
Actually, 3 single player games, right? And he got eliminated in that. And then he goes to the underground. He also told me, man, okay, well, I can still make it out of this. I just hope I don't have to play another single player game. Balloon fight! And he got knocked out. But then he saw Arms like on round 5.
Yeah.
And he was really upset about that. He's just kind of like, oh man, I wish I would have played Arms. And I'm like, well, I wish I would have played Splatoon, but
Right. That's what I was just thinking. It's like, I'm sure he wanted to play Arms, but probably not as much as you wanted to play Splatoon.
yeah, it's okay.
All of us in 15 wanted to play NWC Remix, and we never got to show off our skill in that. So,
yeah,
that was my only talent. But
Yeah.
I gotta get that game. I hear it's really good.
It is fantastic. It really is. Yeah, like even
Because
outside
I love
of
the classics.
right, like outside of the championship mode, like that's such a cool thing that they did. They basically took all of the old games and then like threw in just random challenges to do within those games. And it's really,
cool.
really fun. Like I couldn't more highly recommend it. It's fantastic. So
All right.
so we are in round 5 underground. At this point, John Numbers and Cole are in the final 3, and one person from the underground between you and Jeff, my boy, and Ito and Kyle Super
Kyle.
FX.
Yep.
Kyle W Super FX, the other big Mario Kart. So you were playing Mario Party 2.
Yeah.
And that's an N64 game, but you're playing on Virtual Console on the Wii U, you said?
Yeah.
And what controller were they giving you? I don't know if this was on
the same. It was the same Pro controller that we played. For like that was attached to the Wiimote, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing. My history with Mario Party is like this. You know when people play the older classic Mario parties, like a group of friends play Mario Party, and there's always like those 2 people that constantly fight back and forth, and they're yelling like, "No, you're cheating! You know, I hate this." And then it just ruins friendships. I'm that one player that's 4th place the entire time, but I'm having fun. I'll be like, thanks, and it's fine. I still try to put on the best fight that I could, but it was like these people were so good. The first round was bumper balls.
Right. Okay, go ahead. Bumper balls was first, and it was 3 rounds.
Yeah. And I survived that, or the bumper balls.
Yeah, the first round
knocked out.
All survived.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was weird because like we really didn't talk much going into that, but we knew it's just like, okay, this is us 4. We're really good at this. We have to survive, right? I even told the ref too. They asked me, it's like, what character you want to play as? And I said, I want to play as Peach. And the ref's like, okay, I'll give you Peach. And then they didn't give me Peach. I got Mario instead.
No, that's your lucky charm.
I know. So I didn't get to play as Peach at all. I got to play as Mario. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm just gonna keep this and see what happens, right? We play bumper balls. I thought I played bumper balls. We all survived, I think, for like a couple rounds, and I got knocked out one of the rounds, so I didn't get any points from that. And then we played the what was it? Hot Step Panic or something? I don't know.
Hexagon Heat.
Hexagon Heat, that's the one. And that's where I committed one of the biggest blunders ever. I'm not sure if you remember that one part where it's like the Mario ground pounded a Wario, and he basically fell off and
yeah.
That was me.
Yep.
And so what happens? I guess they do a Mario Maker, which John Numbers obliterates, and I mean even like the casters were almost annoyed that he just blew through their level so fast without even much of a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that left Cole and Ito in what was the craziest verse. It was Super Mario Brothers Deluxe on the Game Boy, and it was that versus game.
Oh,
and it was best of 9, and they went to the 9th game. They played through all the levels. They went back to 1-1 for the last match, and it was just the biggest back and forth. Like it was insane. It was like I can't believe that crazy ass little Game Boy Color game was so hype, as the kids say. Look at me trying to be
It was
cool.
amazing. Yeah. No,
Like-
no, it's good. It's good. It's good.
Were you guys watching at this point, just like with your mouth agape? Like what's the attitude in that room? Like watching these two like go at it like that.
I was watching and everybody was like cheering, but I said to myself, if I had gotten a chance to play Mario Maker, I probably would have, because like Mario Maker is also a game that I play a lot.
Yeah.
And Super Mario Brothers Deluxe is also a game that I owned at the time, and like I played so much the original Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers Deluxe. I probably would have done really well at that. So if it wasn't for Mario Party, but anyways, it's ironic that Mario Party and Mario Kart were like the two things that
the
did me
killers.
in.
Yeah.
And playing Mario and Mario Party, which is there's probably a theme here, I'm sure. But anyways,
Right.
I got to, I was just watching, and it was just me cheering for. I think all of us were actually cheering for Thomas, believe it or not.
Really, yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
He's
we
a
like
really nice
we like
guy.
John Numbers, but Thomas was like the underdog, right?
right.
Everybody was like expecting that like John Numbers was gonna win, but everybody was like, we want to see a new champion. We want to see a new champion, right? So everybody was like cheering for Thomas G. It was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So the moment that you realize that he wins, like, was there some shock? Was it like, oh my god, he did it? Like it was. What happens in the finals? Ito actually takes the first round, and Numbers takes the second round. So there's no head start in the final round
Right.
of Mario Odyssey, which
Mhm.
honestly was a bit anticlimactic because it's such an exploration heavy game that it's not that go ahead, and it doesn't have a race feel to it. I didn't really click like Mario Deluxe did, or Mario Maker back in 15 or this year. So to me, it was a little anticlimactic. But the fact that Numbers
It's their
made that
new
one
game.
mistake with the bullet bill, and everybody knew going in that it was going to be that game. But Ito won the championship, and he had this heartfelt speech. And like, what's the reaction when he won it? Like, when did you all come out right after? What they let you all back out for the big final? Hey guys,
Yep.
wave and whatever else. But
Okay, so when Cole got his third place, he came backstage, and then we all like said congratulations. We were so happy to see him. But when the finals were pretty much concluded, we all like congratulated Thomas G, and he had like this, he was like on giving like an interview, and he was pretty busy, needless to say. But like we saw also John Numbers, and we also said congratulations, you did amazing, like great job. He was a little disappointed because he wanted to win, but like he
Mhm.
knows that he did really, really well, and
Well,
we were all
it's-
really proud of him.
it still bugs him. He's tweeting about bringing it back in 2020 right now. He wants a third shot at it.
Yeah.
He does, and he recently had a shot with the Smash World Championships as well. Like he was, like, man, John. Like, I don't know. Like, there's never enough to say about John Numbers. Like, he's an outstanding player at whatever he plays. I actually got to hang out with him when we went to Smash and Splash. Actually, he came into the Splatoon room for late night Splatoon, which is really surprising because first off, I didn't even think I'd see him there. And second, I didn't even think he plays that much Splatoon, but he actually does occasionally play Splatoon on his streams. And we were playing an 8-player private battle, and I was playing with him, like on the same team against each other, and he's pretty okay. Like, I mean, he still needs a little work to get like up there with the rest of like us professional players for Splatoon, but he can hold his own for sure.
Well, he's one of only 4 people that have been in 2 of the Nintendo World Championships as finalists.
Mm-hmm.
Just something to think about. There's only 4 people in the world that have been in 2 as finalists. So it's pretty impressive.
Wait, 4 people?
So you have to remember there's 90, 94, 15, and 17. So there were 3 people that were in both 90 and 94, and he's the only one that was in 15 and 17.
Yeah, okay.
And
So
so 15 and
4 total.
17 is by far the hardest accomplishment because of the very limited number.
Only 8 people, right? Exactly. Only 8 people were finalists from 15. So pretty good.
Wow. Crazy, and it all worked out. But I mean, I wonder if they would have invited him had he not won. That was
maybe
he might
I don't
because
think so,
he was local in New York. So, but who knows?
Well, you got to think. I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they did invite you before the tournament actually started, right, Dan?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, so they probably would have had to contact him before the tournament started.
Yeah.
The qualifiers, right?
Right.
Okay.
So I don't think he would have been.
Interesting. Well, and then did I talk to you in the after part? I mean, I try to meet as many of you guys as possible.
Yeah. That's actually where I met you for the first time. Back then, I'll be completely honest. It was really funny because when you approached me, I didn't know who you were.
Well, yeah.
I didn't know who you were. No, it's because like I've seen you at the Nintendo World Championships 2015, and I was aware of you, but like you looked very different from when you were on stage at 2015. Or rather, yeah, like you looked a little bit different. So I wasn't able to actually put two and two together. And it wasn't until I went on Twitter and then I finally made that connection. I'm like, oh my goodness, that was actually BSG. I'm like, oh man. And then I felt really immediately regretful because like I wanted to talk to you and like ask you about like 2015 and stuff like that because like, you know, having been part of the 2017 event, suddenly it's like, wow, what was the 2015 like event like, you know, and just ask all these questions because I was watching and like just everything about the Nintendo World Championships filled me with so much wonder and I just wanted to know more and more, right?
Well, thanks. I mean, and did you talk to numbers about any of that stuff, or was he?
He was busy a lot.
Guy, but he's busy, and his perspective is very mechanical, and he doesn't have a lot of romance with it. He's all about winning and doing well as games, which makes him a goddamn machine. Whereas I'm the guy getting emotional. I'm the one who cried on Disney XD. I'm the one, you know. I was the one who was 13 years old again, so my perspective was a lot different than his. So
that exactly,
I think
that's exactly what I wanted to see or wanted to hear about because that's the way I see it, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It feels significant to me when you ask someone like exactly what you said when you ask someone like John Numbers about how an experience was with regards to the game. He basically tells you the bare bones of it, not because you know that's how he feels. It's just that's his perspective on things. Like he looks at things very differently, in such a way that it like he wants to make sure that he's either like winning or like knowing more about it in such a mechanical way, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, it's not a knock at all. That's why I'm doing this show. It's like I want to get all these people's perspectives. I mean, we've run a very big gamut of past champions, and I want to get the stories. I want to get the feelings because you can get as many scoreboards and this person won this and this year, but the perspective and the feelings is what's going to be lost first, and I want to get that recorded.
Yeah. The best analogy, like just to summarize the whole thing, is like a person like him will look at himself as a champion because he's the 2015 champion. He's got like he's got a reputation to defend, and that's totally understandable. Whereas with me, the whole experience of being at the 2017 World Championships, it was like the story of a little fish in a big pond, right? Like this is my like I didn't qualify with Mario Kart. I didn't win like a major tournament like Zerk or Tiburon did. I was just an event organizer that just happened to know a bunch of games, and nobody knew who I was. I was a small time streamer back then, so it's like, how can I prove myself, right? Where do I fit in and all this?
You did. You sure did.
You freaking did it, dude.
Yep. And then I ended up tying for 4th, so that's not bad.
Pretty awesome in my book.
Yeah.
Oh man, this has been great. That's I mean, the perspective is fantastic, and we really do appreciate you coming on with us and kind of sharing all of that with us. So
I appreciate this so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Any parting thoughts as we move on from this now?
Yes, actually. I guess I might as well use this opportunity to sort of summarize what I wanted to say because at the Midwest Gaming Con when we were doing our panel, Chris knows about this. But I figured this would kind of be a good opportunity to do it now because it's also just as equally relevant. To the people that actually watch these events, these Nintendo events, and think to yourselves like, oh man, it would be so cool to actually compete in something like this. Dream big, but go for it. That's all I have to tell to anyone that's actually watching this video. Just go for it. Like, compete, expose yourself, put yourself out there. If you want to be like someone like me, an event coordinator for like events, just to get people together, do that. If you love competing for the sake of the thrill and just being in you know, like in these heated matches and just enjoying the adrenaline rushes that come with this, do it. Put yourself out there. Don't ever be ashamed or afraid of progress. Sure, there's going to be so many opportunities or experiences where you're going to stumble. You're going to make yourself think that maybe I'm not good enough. But no, don't ever tell yourself that you're not good enough, because I had those kind of like those doubts every now and then, just because, like, you know, I'm playing with all these like really, really good people, and, you know, I was able to actually pull out just fine, right? You know, I didn't finish top 3, but I mean, I still was able to do okay, and I had such a blast doing it. And I thank all the people at Nintendo that were actually able to give me that opportunity, and was able to recognize all the stuff that I do for the Splatoon community and for others as well. But yeah, just the only parting thought I can really give to anyone watching this is just, if you love esports and you love gaming, be it retro gaming or new gaming or just being able to compete, do it. Don't ever be afraid. Just go out there and just do it and have fun.
Awesome.
I love
Fantastic. And then one more thing, I do want you to promote your stream. So if you could just kind of tell us where we can find you, where we can follow you, etc. Anything you want to promote there?
All right. My Twitch stream, which is a little bit inactive at the moment, but I will be coming a lot more active as within the next month or so. You can find me at www.twitch.tv/PasteCat. And of course my Twitter, which I, you know, upload a lot of stuff on there, as much as I can. It's at PV_PasteCat. So PV as in player versus player, PasteCat.
Got it. Very cool. So PvP AcedCat, PV
Yeah.
AcedCat. Got it. Very cool.
There you go.
Excellent. Well, this has been fantastic. Again, thank you very much for coming on. And yeah, I guess we can call it here.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks again.